1. All right, and we are live.
Yay!
So
awesome.
If anyone can hear us, spam the chat. Don't actually spam the chat, but like say something. We're gonna wait for people to come in. I'm gonna see if this posted. Oh, it's up on Twitter. So I am gonna retweet this. Let's see. Oh, and you liked it. No, you liked the other one. Okay, so let me quote tweet this, and we're live. Yeah, tweet that. Great. All right. And then I'm gonna shout out my Discord here. What's here? What's
Oh my gosh, no. He's gonna no. I'm
like,
so scared.
No, you gotta be careful with what you say, man. We got the
I'm so scared.
We got the anime police here. We got the sergeant of the local anime precinct.
I don't know if you saw the other day, but he hit us with like very hard hitting disses, calling us cringe.
Was that on the Our Anime podcast?
No, he called our tweets cringe.
Oh, my tweet. Yeah, no.
He went out of his way to call both of us cringe. It was awful. I cried for like 3 days.
I just, I was like, this is his way of being affectionate. I'm just going to interpret it as that. This is
just a tsundere.
Yeah, he just doesn't like to admit that, he loves us. So today, we're gonna talk. That was an awkward intro.
We have some explaining to do.
All right, let me start from the top. Let me fill people in on why we're here today, what we're talking about, and then I'll do some introductions. So today on the latest episode of the Just Weeps podcast, we're talking about anime scores. Now, the reason we're talking about this is because actually recently I started on MyAnimeList. So, okay, I didn't actually... Was that?
Happy for you.
Well, okay, I actually started on MyAnimeList back in 2011, but I forgot the password, never updated it again, and I was just like, shit, okay, let me do a thing where I stream it, but it would be best if I started this from the beginning. So I started a new profile, started I've only filled out the anime I've watched, the completed anime on stream, and I also had the stipulation from my viewers to score everything I add to my completed anime, even if I don't remember it. And it caused me so much mental torture and moral dilemma, because I'm like, I don't have a scoring system. I don't know if this is fair. I don't remember if I watched this, but they were like, just do it, fix it later. And I was like, okay. But now it really, I looked at other people's kind of scoring systems. I was trying to get an idea of how this works. And I was like, okay, do scores matter? Is there inherent value to knowing this stuff, whatever? And anyways, that brings us here. So I have not finished updating that. I'm only up to 200 completed anime. I know there's a lot more because I keep remembering a new one every now and then. And I'm like, you know what? Let's invite someone that is more active, really active in the community. Just reached 4,000 followers. She is in 4K. Not right now. Definitely not right now. But it's not. This stream is.
I became negative 4K as soon as I started speaking, which would give an indicator on the foundation of my takes.
This whole stream is 720p. It's not worthy of your 4K-ness, your 4K status. So we're not worthy. We're just happy to have you here. So I've brought in special guest from the Reddit community, our anime mod, the king of shock value herself.
Oh, I like that one.
ShaKing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
There you go. We got to give her the proper intro.
This is the best moment of my life. This was perfect. Thank you.
She is the captain of Nekoma herself, and you know what?
Gosh.
Just for you, that one. Also,
oh my gosh,
big fan of Steins Gate.
I am. Oh my gosh, awesome. Thank you so much.
I'm super glad you're on. You are very fun to talk to, and I thought, who better to dive into this whole conversation about scores than you? That you've been around the community, you've seen all the hot takes, all the horrible takes. So let's just start it off by, I wanted to ask you, what's your personal philosophy about watching anime? And what I mean about that, it's not as abstract as I'm making it sound. Are you selective with what you watch? What do you kind of look for when you're going to watch anime?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I definitely used to be a lot more lenient back in the day. And by that, I mean 2016, not eons ago, but I used to try and watch like all the airing series that I knew people were talking about, just to kind of get a good grasp on what was coming out and what people were talking about. And I think on a certain level, I was kind of petty about it, and I had my favorites at the time. And I wanted to kind of like reaffirm that they were the best by watching other shows and seeing how they stacked up to them. But most of the time, my philosophy is like, if I'm curious about a show, I'm going to watch it. And I try and watch it and give like, try and watch it to completion, try and give a full, fair opinion on it. But I've definitely gotten a lot more picky about what shows I watch now that I have less time and I'm infinitely lazier about them. So, if I see a show that seems very interesting, like conceptually, or I hear a lot of people talking about it and I'm curious about what they're saying, then I'll pick it up. So, I think like a great example that we were kind of talking about earlier is, like Priority Egg. Like, what is the full name? I just call it Egg all the time.
Wonder Egg Priority.
Wonder Egg Priority.
It's funny that you just worded it like that. I was talking to my friend last night. He hadn't watched it yet. He's like, I'm checking out the new anime out right now. And I'm like, your only priority should be to watch Wonder Egg Priority. And he's like, I'm watching it after dinner. Don't worry. I'm like, okay.
That's so true, though. That's so true. And that's a show that I knew nothing about, but everyone was talking about. And it also did seem interesting. So it was kind of like a nice, best of both worlds situation, and then that's turned out wonderfully. But then there would be something else that might not necessarily be up my wheelhouse of something I'd find interesting, like Eurocamp, like the cute girls going camping show. But so many people enjoyed it that I'm like, okay, I got to check this out and see if it's actually really cute and comfy. And it was like pretty fun. So both of those are like just good examples of like intrigue plus discussion generally leads to me checking something out.
So the way you approach it is essentially which is I think is similar to me, is you want to understand like why the community is into it. So you might not even be into it yourself like initially, but you're kind of like, why do people like this? Like, what does it live up to that sort of that? So then it kind of opens up avenues for communication, like for you to be in on it and talk about it. And by the way, I still have not watched all of Eurocamp. I watched I've heard so many things. I watched an episode and I just was like, this is kind of slow.
I think a lot of people like it more than I do. Like I could at least see the appeal when I saw the first season, and I think like some of the characters are cute and fun, but I definitely didn't enjoy it as much as them. But just knowing that I could understand where people were coming from was like worth the experience.
And I do have another one, which we'll talk about later, which I'll get to it later. That is kind of, I think it was the same year as Eurocamp that people feel really, really like highly feel like love it a lot, but I don't think you did as much. So
I'm excited. This will be nerve-wracking.
So it was good to know. So it's kind of like that intrigue. And do you feel like there's anything wrong with that? Like, do you think like people, like, are you of the philosophy that people should kind of only check out like the stuff that they're genuinely interested in, or like yourself, like, it's okay to just want to be in on it and kind of understand why people like this, even if you might not necessarily like it?
I think the only thing that matters when you're watching a show is if you're giving it a fair chance. Like if you're going into a show with the intention to hate on it, and you're not like, if you don't have an open mind that like it might potentially be good, then I think that's kind of the only issue I have. Like, because you can tell some people will, and I'm not talking about like the known bad shows. Like sometimes we know that they're not going to be that good, but like you check them out anyway just to see what happens. I'm talking about more of the shows that like people are like that are really acclaimed or popular, and people are like, well, I don't like this, but I'm going to watch it anyway. And then they're just consistently negative on it, and it feels like they never gave it a fair chance. I think that's the only type of, issues. That's the only issue I really have. But if you're just watching it, to bandwagon on, or like you want to form your own opinion on, and it does happen to be negative organically, then I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay. Yeah, it's like you gave it enough of a chance, and you can feel the way you do about it, but at least you gave it a chance. And
exactly.
What's your threshold for giving something a chance? Like how much leeway do you give it before you're like, okay, this is just not my thing, I'm out? Or like, do you power through to get to that point where people are like, don't worry, once you get to like episode 70, it's good?
Oh yeah, I've done that. I mean, I am a Gintama fan, so I've been on both sides of the I'm powering through this, and get to this point, this is when it gets good. So I've unfortunately seen both sides of that, but I think I think if I get to the point where I'm no longer curious and I'm not having a good time, then I'm like, okay, I'm done. Because I really am driven more by curiosity and intrigue than, pure entertainment sometimes. Like, I do want to be entertained, but I'm willing to put up with a lot if I'm still curious to see what happens. But once that's happened, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely powered through 70 manga chapters of Hitman Reborn to
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one.
Because that was a curious case where it was, I think it didn't know what it wanted to be. The author made it a gag manga. It was straight up gag manga for, 70 chapters. And then after that, it became a serious like battle shonen. So it was like,
interesting.
I mean, at the time, like I was just really into battle shonen. I don't have anything against gag manga, but it's not
different.
something I, want to like gravitate towards reading. And then I was like, okay, my friend's like, once you get to that chapter 70, and I'm like, can I skip this? Like, no, you kind of have to get like, the characters. I'm like, okay. So that was a case of that fierce curiosity.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, how do you feel about scores? Like just scores in general? Do you feel like having them sometimes closes the conversation?
Yeah, I think sometimes people focus on scores more than opinions, which I think can be kind of like, it can lead to like a lot of misunderstandings and miscommunication, and sometimes, just like unnecessary strife and stress sometimes. But I think scores are meant to represent your opinion, but they shouldn't be the opinion. Like, you shouldn't just be like, this show is a 9. It's like, okay, but what does that mean? Like, in the grander scheme of your scores, like, what does a 9 mean to you? Like, what are your actual opinions on the show to give it a 9? And I can see sometimes people just give it a score, especially, I think we were talking about this before, like, the Anthony Fantano meme scores, like the light with the number, which is like light 6 or like decent 8. And, if they use that as a way to explain what their opinions are, I think it's good. But if they just kind of leave it at that and they're not willing to kind of elaborate or describe, then I think it can kind of be an issue. But, I do think scores are just a number, and your opinion should kind of correlate to that. But it's all definitely relative to what scores mean to you.
Yeah, it's kind of like one way to view it. Unfortunately, it's not taken this way in the community because it's taken as, a competition. But I think Drax here in the chat pretty much pointed out, it can kind of be seen as like a tool. It's an easy way of kind of not having to ask your opinion on everything. It's like a shorthand, like, oh, this was like a 7, or I accidentally clicked on this was like a 7 or an 8. But sometimes what I don't like about that is the people that only like work in that metric, where it's like you start to talk about it, like, oh, there was this interesting part about the show. It's like, oh, that show was a 6, and then that was it, and the conversation dies. It's like, okay, but there was like these good parts about it, and it's like, no, it was just a 6. I'm like, okay, well,
yeah, like, what does that mean? What does a 6 mean? Because for some people, a 6 is like, this is above average, but I'm not like super fond of it. And for some people, a 6 is like, oh, this is the worst thing I've seen.
Yeah, like it's, I don't know. It's tough, but it can work like a shorthand to kind of give people an idea of like what you like and stuff like that. But again, like we're saying, a lot of people just make it into this objective thing where this is like, oh no, this is a 10. And if you don't see this as a 10 or a 9, then there's no point.
Yeah.
There's no point in kind of like, I don't know, engaging with you. So like, but do you think like, what do you think scores are supposed to be more of a personal thing that you're supposed to figure out for yourself, or is it supposed to signal to other people the quality of the show?
Well, I think they both kind of go hand in hand, because it's tough when you kind of you do have to figure out what scores mean for yourself. But then I think when it comes to the like larger community at hand, when you see like a show's overall average, then that's kind of a good indicator of how most people feel about it. But then again, I've met so many people who like their scores are just so completely different and their taste is so different from the community, where I think like the overall scores for community are kind of pointless to them, because, their taste is just so different that like they're not going to align with what the majority thinks anyway. But I think if it's like a person you trust or a person you have like really similar tastes and like philosophy with, I think their scores are a good indicator of like how you will probably feel about things. And I think we've all done that with our friends, where we're like, oh, you gave this show an 8, like it's probably going to be a good experience. Even if I give it like a 9 or a 7, like even if we're not the same, like it's probably going to be around there. I'm not expecting
ballpark.
like, Yeah, it's a
ballpark.
good ballpark. I'm not expecting like the worst show of all time, even though that has happened. I'm sure you've had that too, where, yeah, as you said with Hitman Reborn, where you're like, yeah, just keep watching, it's great. And you're like, it's not great. You've led me astray. I don't know how to come back from this.
I mean, I was into it. I did
Yeah.
actually catch up, and then I was so into it, and then later on there was some arc, and I'm not even going to get into that, but it was worth catching up for the time. Yeah, like because I think what I've noticed is a lot of my friends we have a similar taste, so. Sometimes what they'll recommend, I typically end up being into, but there are a few shows that it's just like, okay, it's like night and day. We don't really enjoy the same way. And then what's your metric? What's like a 10, a 9? What's your scoring system? How do you see it?
I think so. I think there's like a really fine line between a 9 and a 10, and I think some people might have. I mean, I would expect most people have like a different take on this, but so I think a 9 is like, for me, a show that's like practically perfect, that's really excellent and pretty much can do everything right, but it kind of misses that extra spark to be like an all-time, personal favorite that like kind of transcends itself and really leaves like a long, strong impact on me. And sometimes it's really tough to describe because you're like, I'm not really sure what the missing like piece is. I'm not sure what that missing it factor is, but sometimes it's just that difference between something that really resonates with you on another level and being like a really excellent show.
Yeah, like it's something like when a show like completely like blows you away on a transcendent level, it's like, okay, that's a 10. But then if you watch the show and you felt like execution, everything was great about it on whatever level, but it just didn't go over that threshold where you feel like, oh, it's amazing, and I don't know. So then you're like, okay, that's not a 10. That's not a 10.
Yeah.
What do you typically like consider 5, 6s, and 7s kind of like how it's kind of defined on Mal, where it's like kind of average, good, mid?
I think for me, a 5 is like an average show, and then a 6 is like decent, and a 7 is good. That's like generally what I go by. I think, just looking at a show's average score, I know that like if a show's average score is a 5, that means it's probably like one of the worst things of all time. But they have kind of like this sub, when like Mal scores, that like in this 7 range is kind of like how they determine if a show is, barely good or actually pretty good and possibly underrated. But if someone else gives a show a 5, I would think it's average, but for some people that does mean like it's really bad, which I think is interesting because I mean, I kind of wish they would use the full like 1 to 10 score, and that 5 just really means like an average experience and isn't like, the worst thing I've seen.
Bad. Yeah, because sometimes 5 is, and even I do this, when I look at the number, I confuse it with this means it's bad, because it's where it could just literally mean like this was just generic, it wasn't really bad, but it wasn't good, but to me 5 is like, I don't know, getting a 50 on a test score when you're aiming for like a 70.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just failing.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of that, of something you've given a 5, but like you don't think it's bad?
Yeah.
But it's a 5.
I think my go-to example is probably like, what's funny? This is the perfect example of a 5 because I've gotten people annoyed at the score for this show for both positive and negative reasons. And it's Akame ga Kill. And I've seen people be annoyed that I've given it a high score, as high of a score as a 5, and as low of a score as a 5. So that's how I know it's like my perfect 5. And that's a show that I don't think is bad. I think it has like really redeeming qualities at times, but it's also not really good enough for me to recommend to people unless I know that they would be into that type of show.
Oh yeah, that's actually a good question. So recommending like recommendation level, what would that be? Would that be a 7, or it has to be like an 8 and above?
Oh, that's interesting because I think that I also use my 1 to 10 scores. Like if anything is below a 5, I cannot recommend it to someone in good faith. That's like 5 is like the threshold of that. Anything 6 and above, I could recommend to someone because I do consider it a positive experience that has, attributes that are worth experiencing. And if someone likes them a lot or is into that genre of series, I could say like, I wasn't super big on it, but I know that you're a fan of this, so you might like this. But anything below a 5, I'm like, no, I can't recommend this. Like
I can't in good faith recommend this.
Yeah. Even some shows that I like that ended up turning out really poorly. Like, I don't know if you saw it. It was back in like 2016, that show Gangsta. And it's spelled like Gangsta.
I didn't watch it. I saw it around and I was kind of like, gonna hear the reception, but I wasn't sure. And then I was like, it didn't look.
And that one's a tough one because the first like 8 episodes of that, I loved it. And I think everyone loved it. So like I was adored that show for the first 8 episodes. And then it went drastically downhill in the last 4 episodes because the studio, Manglobe, I think it's called Manglobe, that went out of business. So like crashed and burned. The whole thing was just like disappointed. So I can't recommend that show because it got so bad in the last 4 episodes, but I don't like hate the show. I love the majority of it. I just can't recommend it because it had such a bad ending.
It's part of the experience.
Yeah.
There was another show I watched like that. That was like in 2013 or 2012. I forgot what it was called, where like, I don't know, they had production issues in the last 2 episodes. Like everything was fine and smooth. And then the last 2 episodes, it just went like really downhill production wise. I can't remember the name, so I'm not going to harp on it. But so 6 or 7 are still recommendable, but it's kind of like a caveat, like an asterisk, and be like, I recommend this to you, but just so you know, this is, has its issues.
I think that some people view a 6 and a 7 more harshly than I do. Like I still really like my 7s. I just don't consider them personal favorites. And that can be tough when you give someone's personal favorite a 7 and you're like, look, I still liked it. It's just not the same level of like that you had for it.
I don't want to jump around, but I feel like I have to. The Great Pretender, you watched it?
I'm watching it now. Yeah, I'm in the last 4th arc.
Oh, okay. I guess we can't really talk about it.
Oh, you can bring it up. I know what happens. You can bring it up.
I finished it like a few months back. And people, like before I finished it, because the 4th arc hadn't come out, I was waiting for Netflix to release it. I was like, I'll just wait. And like I went on Mal just out of curiosity and I was reading the reviews and people were so torn. It was so polarizing on the 4th case where the consensus was like the show was so great until this 4th case. Like this ruined everything. This like took like destroyed everything that came before. Are you feeling that right now or no?
I was feeling some kind of way with this last 4th arc, and I was thinking like I'm in the middle of it, and I know what happens, but I do feel like it's such a departure from the tone and the writing style, not writing style, but like the overall tone and balance of like lightheartedness and serious topics that the first 3 arcs had, and that they did really well. And the 4th arc seems like such a departure from that. But I don't think I would ever like say this 4th arc ruins everything that came before it, especially because they're so separate from each other. Like they're separate story arcs and they are so different that I don't think it reflects poorly on like the entire series that came before it. And I don't even think it's like that bad that it's a show ruining thing. Like, it's the difference between I'm just, predicting like maybe I would give Great Pretender an 8. But then with the story arc of the 4th arc, I give it a 7. Something like that. I don't think it's a huge like game changer like that.
Yeah, like I definitely overall, even with the 4th arc, I'd still give the show like a 7 because everything was mostly good. And I had I don't know, maybe it's because I read these negative reviews before and I didn't read the spoilers. I just kind of got the general vibe. And I don't know, when I watched, I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. It makes sense. There was a few things that were a little sus, that weren't consistent. I'm like, that doesn't make sense with what came before. But it was a good time. It was a good ride, So a little bit more suspension of disbelief than I wanted, but
that's where I'm at.
I was like, this is still a 7. This is still good.
Yeah. I'm glad you feel the same way on it too, because I feel like that's like the right take of like, it's not that bad as these reviews are making it out to be. Like it might hamper my experience a bit, but it's not ruining the series.
Yeah. And like sometimes I lost my train of thought, but I thought it was a solid 7. I just sometimes feel like I'm a little too lenient with scores. That's why I'm like trying to really determine my scoring system. So I don't seem like too lenient where I'm a little too forgiving, because I do want to, if something is, earns a 6 or a 5, it's a better indicator for myself. Like, okay, because if everything's a 7, then,
nothing's a 7.
Yeah. So, and I hate to bring this one up because I was saving this for later, but it's just you know what? F it.
Go for it.
It's coming up, and I have to bring it up because I did a little bit of stalking. I found your MyAnimeList, and I scouted out some scores just to get a general idea for this podcast. And there was one that tore me up a little. It's just I didn't want it to, because
the fact that I can think of at least 3 or 4 makes me nervous.
I was reading through our scores, and we kind of align on a lot of like, we're similar, we're in the ballpark. Like maybe something you gave an 8, I gave a 7. But there were a few that were like, okay, all right. But then there was one that was like, how? Why? I need to know. And I
Okay.
shouldn't feel this way because we're talking about scores are subjective, it's personal. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you could resonate with something. You don't need to be validated or whatever. But it's a visceral reaction. So, okay, enough build up. Mob Psycho 100 season 1.
Oh, okay.
5 out of 10.
Oh, I have a good explanation. Well, no, I have an explanation for this. So, the first time I watched it, it was kind of like what we were talking about when it was airing and everyone was kind of hyping it up so much.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really a fan of like let's say the first half of season 1. I didn't like it because I couldn't get a really good like connection to the characters, so to speak, when it was kind of doing like, I don't want to say it was slice of life. It was like kind of like episodic. Like they had Mob and Reagan just had their adventures, but then it kicked in with the like overarching plot of that season with his brother. And that's when I really enjoyed it. But overall, it took me so long to get into it that I didn't enjoy it. But then fast forward to season 2, I like absolutely loved all of it. Like I loved all of it. So I'm in the process of rewatching it. It's not shown on my mount. So I'm rewatching it. And it's at the very least like a 7 for me now, like probably higher. Yeah. So that's an outdated score. That one is not accurate.
Because like I saw season 2 was at an 8. And so that's why I was like, well, she at least liked season 2. But then I was like, but how does she not like season? Like,
no,
because
I went through my own.
Feel the opposite way about season 2, I think. They feel
which is weird.
Which is more like season 2 with the ending, like the last few episodes felt a little rushed and it was kind of, I don't know, people felt a little more mixed besides a few episodes, and then they feel one was more of a consistently better experience. So
yeah, I don't feel that because even with my improved opinion on season 1, I don't think that. I mean, I think season 2 is a lot better in like every capacity. And I think it's such a great like transition from season 1's payoff to season 2's payoff. So I think season 2 is like probably almost underrated too. So I could see giving season 1 an 8 and then season 2 a 9 on rewatch. So that one, so I went through my own character development, just like Mob, to improve my Mob Psycho scores.
That's a good one. Wait, so why, without, I guess, spoilers for season 2, what about season 2 brought it up above, season 1 for you? Like, was it like more emotionally resonant? Was it?
I think it was everything. I think even like the first episode of season 2 is like one of the best first episodes I've seen in general, that just like captures like the emotional vulnerability, but also just like how genuine Mob is about everything and how he cares about people. Like, I think that just captures the series so well. And then going from there to, I think they had, I forget the name of the guy he fought, but it was like in the dream sequence, you have that awesome fight, which is like one of the coolest looking fights ever. Yeah. And that's like a cool like character moment for Mob. So he continues to develop then. Then you have the amazing Reagan arc where, they have, you have that post-credit scene where Reagan is where Mob says that like he always knew he was a good guy. That was such a cool like payoff. And then you have like even the last arc that people had some issues with. I thought it was really cool. I thought like everything Mob did in that, like the way he connected with people who were like using their powers for selfish reasons, the cool fight scenes they have. I feel like it was just everything that Mob does well, like executed at its best.
Yeah, I felt like definitely like season 2. I love all of it, but season 2 is where you felt like it Mob really got some character development by the end. Like he really like in tandem with the theme of the show, he became the protagonist. So he was starting to embrace the mantle of the protagonist, which is and it was very touching.
Yeah, exactly. I forget what I was gonna say. I feel like for 2000, I think that came out in 2018. I forget because it's been like, I feel like 2020 was like 5 years. So I've lost all semblance of time. But I think for 2019, even if I might have had Beastars ahead of it, I still feel like Mob Psycho season 2 was like the anime of the year pick. Like, that's the one I felt like that was the show of the year for me.
I actually didn't feel as strongly about Beastars as other people did.
It's okay.
I understood it. I don't know. I feel like it was like an 8. Like people were making it out to be like a 10. And I was like, this feels like an 8 to me. Like, I don't know. I felt like maybe it was the hype, or maybe like I just felt like I didn't get enough payoff within the season.
Oh, that makes sense. Oh, yeah.
Within the first
fair.
season that I'm like, not enough for me to be like, oh, this is like the most amazing thing I've seen. But then
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
I've had enough, the same complaint, maybe I'm being unfair. I've had the same complaint when I told a friend back in 2017 to watch Hoseki no Kuni or Land of the Lustrous. And I loved it. I was raving about it. And then he was just mad that it just abruptly ended, no closure. And he was like, why did you recommend this?
Yeah, that's the one where it's like I always complain about all the like read the manga endings, and then I still like love Hoseki no Kuni, even though it's so guilty of that. But I'm like, that's my exception. Hoseki no Kuni gets the pass.
Yeah, it was just the animation itself was glorious, and the story was just emotionally resonant. And by the way, just not to make you self-conscious, but we did have a comment here saying that let's see if we can pull it up. Your ShaKing, your cam is going ape shit.
I'm sorry.
So, to address that, it's like the camera cannot handle her 4K-ness. No. This is just it glitching out. She's like, why do you keep bringing this up? I hate you. I'm never coming back on this podcast.
No, it's just so sweet, and I'm not sure what to do. I feel so bad about my cam. Let me try and turn it off again and see what happens.
It's no big deal. I think it's part of the effect.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the best effect. I don't know why it's like this. I feel bad. Sorry if it's bothering everyone.
She'll fix it in the future, before the future podcast that she'll be on.
I don't know why it's doing this.
And then my other question, actually, in terms of scoring, we haven't gone into your metric specifically, but I think we'll build up to it over time. How much do you factor in enjoyment into your overall score of an anime, or do you separate it?
I think I used to separate it a lot more. I used to be like, the show is fun, but I don't know if it's good. But now I'm at the point where if a show is not fun, I don't think it can be good. I think you have to have like some level of enjoyment in a series. Otherwise, it's not executed as well as it could be. And it's not just fun. Like, I'm not just talking about like meathead hype enjoyment. I'm talking about just like, your personal connection to it, how engaged you are like emotionally and mentally with something conceptually.
Yeah. I mean, Evangelion's not uplifting, no matter how you slice it. It's just never going to be that type of show, but and that's the thing. It's like, it's how much of it is like engaging to you. So I feel like if you're not like at least remotely having a good time or an entertaining time that feels worthwhile, then I don't think the series can be good. And people have said like, some of the scores I've had or some of the opinions I've had for some things that are generally considered like really well written or like very well executed. I'm like, well, I can't really say it has good writing because the writing didn't capture me like emotionally, intellectually at all. Like, I'm not engaged in it. So I don't know how I can call that good writing if I don't genuinely feel like there were good aspects to it, Yeah, and actually, how do you feel about that? Like when you come across that and someone's like, you don't understand, you're not grasping like the writing or whatever. Like, do you ever feel like maybe like, oh, maybe it's me, like maybe I have to give it another look. Maybe I didn't capture, like I didn't grasp something that they're talking about. Maybe I missed a detail, or is it kind of like, well, I already know, like it didn't resonate with me, or it didn't do its job, and it is that like do you ever second guess yourself? Is kind of what I'm saying. Or I think
I do second guess myself sometimes if it's something I don't really feel strongly about, or if I don't have like a really good reason for why I feel the way I do. I think, oh, maybe it's me, maybe I'll give it another shot. But there are a lot of times where I think I do fundamentally get the reason why people like it and why it's so acclaimed. And I can recognize that, but I can also recognize that I don't feel the same way. And that I'm like, I see what you see, but I don't feel that. And that's where I don't really second guess myself sometimes, because a lot of people assume that the reason you don't like something is you don't get it. But oftentimes I think people do get it. They just get it and don't like it. It's kind of like when you say, well, like, that's the point. And it's like, I understand what the point is, but I don't like the point,
Yeah, no, it's funny. When I was talking with What about it last week about Evangelion, he was just basically saying the same thing, like, oh, I get it. I get the message, but it's not, it doesn't really vibe, like it didn't vibe with him. It didn't connect with him on that transcendent level. It's like, okay, but I get it. So
yeah, exactly. And sometimes people don't get the point. That is fair. I think sometimes people don't get the point, and you can tell that in what they say, and maybe, talking it out with them and explaining why you like it might resonate with them. And they're like, oh, I didn't see it that way. That's interesting. But a lot of times people do get the point, even if they don't have the same opinion you do.
Yeah. And actually that's a question I have about like sort of in terms of navigating discourse. And I just want to get your thoughts on this. Do you feel like, because a lot of people use kind of objectivist language to just be like, this is the best, period, or this is like a 10 or like, but do you think people need to be careful with how they word things and be like, this is the best for me, like kind of add the for me, or to take extra effort to kind of, quantify like it's for them or it's their opinion? Or do you think that's just unnecessary and people should just say how they feel regardless of, how it sounds, I guess?
I definitely lean a bit more to the second of, I think everyone should I think a big problem comes in when people think of subjective and objective, like both the word subjective and objective, and then the way you can word things that way. And I think I think we all need to go into like media discourse with the understanding that everything someone is saying is an opinion, even when they back it up with evidence. Like, you could say like, this series has like really great animation, really great writing, really great A, B, and C, but still recognize that's an opinion. And even though many people agree with them, it's still an opinion. So when someone says this is the best, I think we all need to understand that like them saying that there's always a hidden, in my opinion, even if they're not going to go out of their way to say, in my opinion, it's always there.
I totally agree with that. And sorry for cutting you off.
No, you're good.
Like it's just, I feel like on the internet that's just not, people don't take that into account a lot of times.
Yeah.
I feel like with writing, for example, like a video essay or a YouTube video, it's like, you have to say like, in my opinion, cause like if you look at essay writing, it's always saying like, it's stupid if you have to say in my opinion, like you shouldn't say it because it's you're writing it. So by default, it's your opinion. It's arguable, it's argumentative, but it doesn't work the same way on the internet. It's you have to kind of specify, hey, this is how I feel about it. This is just a reminder. This isn't a fact. This is literally just, the fancy visuals don't mean shit. It's still my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And like when sometimes people say, well, that's just you share an opinion. You say like, this is the best, or like, I think this is the best at whatever. And someone's like, well, that's just your opinion. And it's like, yeah, I know. Like, that's why I said it. It's just my opinion. And, people can even bring up things to support their opinion, but no matter what they say, it's still an opinion. And sometimes I think sometimes people who are saying something like this is the best, they might not be aware that they're expressing an opinion either. They might actually think that like what they're saying is a fact. And it's like, no, you're still expressing an opinion. Like this is still just, it's media, it's art. It's like, it's not objective.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. It just doesn't always
it doesn't work out.
Translate.
And we always get frustrated with people when they really do feel like they themselves think that they're sharing facts. But I think it is also like kind of our responsibility to like not take them too seriously. Just kind of be like, they might take themselves a bit too seriously, but I'm not going to do the same. Like,
is there anything that you think is objectively bad or objectively good, or maybe because objectively that's a tough, because there's nothing that's objectively bad or good, but like I think the closest you can get to that is universally panned or universally good.
Yeah, I think when it comes to something that we can all like, I think the closest we do get to an objective opinion is like the grand majority of opinions, like the general consensus that we all have towards something, which, it's not actually objective, but like so many people think that I think we can like assume that it's good. And it is like, there is a big difference between objective and collective opinion. But I think the closest we can get to something like that would be, I think, let's say, I'm not going to use a number, but I think most people would agree that like Kyoto Animation works look good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can recognize like the technical skill, the animation quality, the way that they are presented. Like, I think most people can look at Violet Evergarden and say, that is very good looking.
I didn't expect you to take that angle, and that's actually really good, because now I'm trying to think, because one of the questions I was formulating in my head is, can something be universally panned on by mostly everybody, but then can there be someone that could still argue that it's good when it's universally panned and still have like an argument to stand on? But when you bring up Kyoto Animation, I don't know, man. If someone came up and just saying, "Oh, this animation's bad," you just don't see it. I really would be questioning what they're seeing. You know?
Yeah, and they might not like it as much as other art styles. You know, there might be other art styles or other aesthetics that appeals to them more or appeal to them more. But I think with Kyoto Animation, like most people will look at it and say that looks nice, even if they don't know the animation quality or the direction or the art design, and even if they don't know the like small details, I think they can look at it and say, yeah, that looks really pretty.
Like I think I'm like now I'm trying to like I guess challenge myself in my brain like how could you make that argument work? And I think you'd have to take it to such a micro level. Like you'd have to like be well versed in like animation. And let's say for example, you think the way they animate water is shit. You know, but if you've seen Free, then, you know, that's some really good water. But if you wanted to prove your case as to how this water is crap, you'd have to like kind of go into like back up with examples of what, you know, the actual like how real water works and how it looks like and what they're, you know, pointing to Kyoto Animation and how it's not realistic or, you know, how it's doing it wrong. But at that point, even then, that would be a tough sell because the general audience would just be like, yeah, so what? Like, if they can't see it or notice it, unless you take it to that level, it doesn't matter. Yeah,
so, exactly.
Yeah. And sorry to derail, but going back to enjoyment in anime, is there anything you've like you felt like you really enjoyed, but in your brain, I guess you were like, but I know this is a 7. Like you like, enjoyed it like as if it was a 10. Like if you ever had something like that happen to you, we're like, but this is like
yeah, I have
or
to
like
look
a guilty pleasure.
I think this is the closest I get. Let me look it up because I always get the name wrong. It's still a Kyoto Animation show. So you know the one, it's called Beyond the Boundary. I think it's Kanata no Kyokai.
Yeah.
You know that one?
Yeah.
So I watched that. I think it might have actually been my first Kyoto Animation show. And you know, there are so many good points of why it's bad, like writing wise, character wise, whatever. It looks great. I don't think anyone actually disagrees with how it looks, which is, you know, another point for KyoAni. But there are a lot of like cheesy aspects to it, but I still enjoy it just because I think, you know, I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the setting, I enjoyed like the emotional beats between them. So I think I have it as an 8, but like it might be more of a 7. It might be a bit lower if I was being more critical about it. But I also kind of just view it as like a CW preteen, like melodramatic show. You know, I don't view it in like such a high regard that
I had
I'm
that
like,
phase. Vampire Diaries. I had that phase.
Yeah, it's like that's how I like want to describe it. I'm like, the show is just like Vampire Diaries, but like an anime.
Yeah, or Supernatural. Which I think, is that still airing?
I think it's almost, I think it's still airing, but almost done. I wanted to say Riverdale, but I'm not going to actually insult anything by comparing it to Riverdale.
Jesus Christ. So what did I do with Riverdale? So I got to like season 2, but I knew it was like bad. Like I was like, why am I watching it? And it just got to the point where like, I can't watch this anymore. I just see the funny quotes online. I'm like, this show I probably should watch. This looks absolutely ridiculous. This is crazy. I don't even know why. So yeah, and actually Kyokai no Kanata, I only watched it while it was airing, and it's good that you bring it up. Like I never actually analyzed it, and I can't give you the reasons for it, but because I only watched it once, my impression of it without words is like I just felt very about it. Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
Great animation, you know, good scenes, definitely interesting characters. I saw potential from the beginning, but by the end of it, I was like, you know, I was like, I don't know. I kind of like the score you described, but I don't have that leniency that you're giving it because you kind of, there was something about it that you just, you know, was your thing, that you enjoyed it. Yeah.
I think at this point, the only thing I would really sell it on besides just being like passively fun is I think it's a good, entry-level slice of life for people. Like if a lot of people are watching action series and they want to see slice of lives and they want that like bridge between the two, I would recommend it for that. And then, but even then again, you have like Mob Psycho, so you could just recommend that instead. Like that's probably a better example of what that would work.
Yeah. There's plenty of other recommendations.
There are better examples, so even that wouldn't work. But
and I'm not like I've never really been too big on KyoAni shows in general, so I don't know. Again, I know there's a lot of hype around them because the animation is gorgeous, and I'm not debating that. You know, but sorry to interrupt. No, go ahead. Sorry about that. It's just a very specific aesthetic and style. So that's what I mean. Like even recognizing how great looking it is, I can totally understand people liking other aesthetics more, other stories, other studio style, like, you know, the whole 9 yards. The only like Kyoani anime that I think like I feel strongly about, or at least I really liked, and I think it is polarizing because I always hear like a mix of opinions with it, is Violet Evergarden. Like
Oh, that yeah.
people like either love it, or then there are people just like, no, this show is whatever. Or
It's so
like,
yeah, I've
no,
seen
go
a
ahead.
weird mix. I've seen a weird mix of it too. I think I've mostly just seen people love it at this point, but I have seen like some people be kind of down on it. Then again,
Yeah.
I'm probably considered one of the people who are down on it, but I don't consider myself down on it. Like I consider it good and I think it's like worth praising.
Yeah, like I'm not like obsessed with it, but I like,
Mhm.
okay, as long as you're down with episode 10, that's
Oh
it.
yeah.
That's
Oh, did I ever tell you? So I think the two like the biggest episodes that made people cry were 7 and 10.
yeah.
7 was the one where she's like jumping across the river and they have that really gorgeous looking scene.
Okay.
That one. And then 10, of course, is the one with the letters. I was in public when I watched both of them. And I started crying both on an airplane watching episode 7. And then I started crying in the doctor's office, waiting room to go for a 10. And I was like, when will I learn my lesson not to keep watching this show in
That's
public?
such a weave thing to do.
It was so bad.
Fitting for the podcast. I mean, like I've had moments like that. I think like I don't know. I can't recall, but I've definitely had a moment where I'm like watching an anime in public that I should not be watching in public, whether it's for emotional reasons or someone walking in and be like, "What the hell is that?" You know? It's not what you think. It's just out of context. It makes context within. It makes sense within the context of the show.
My fiance came in when I was watching that one scene of Great Pretender where they were like in scene 4 with Abby, you know, where they like she has to get undressed. And
Okay.
I'm like, how do I explain this? Like this show's not explaining this. Like, oh my god.
It's always the case.
It always happens.
And then I think we already went over this, but I think, do you ever feel pressure to be more forgiving or lenient with an anime score because of community like consensus? Like, do you feel like it messes with your credibility if you don't, I don't know, grasp that level of quality? And we kind of talked about this a little bit already.
I think there's always that subtle amount of pressure, but for more shows than others, I definitely think that exists. I think I definitely try and resist it as much as possible. And I definitely try and like not let the community influence me. But like, I would definitely be lying if I said that wasn't a small part of it. Like, I think my go-to is always ReZero, where, you know, I'm like very neutral. Like, there's good and bad to it. Don't feel strongly about it, but people are always like, why did you give it a 6? And I'm like, I don't know how to articulate how little I care about this show.
Wait, you gave ReZero a 6?
Yeah, didn't you see that? Season
Podcast
1.
is over, guys. That's it. This is a wrap. No, I can't
knew it.
associate with you. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
You know, I don't get it. Like, I don't really care. Like, okay, let me backtrack a little bit. So, with ReZero specifically, glad you brought it up. I feel like that is weirdly like a polarizing show for people. It's a polarizing experience, but I never felt that. I've found that out through seeing other people's kind of reactions to it. Like because there are people now kind of catching up with season 2 having come out and like watching it for the first time, or maybe revisiting season 1 and kind of giving their opinions. So like I saw like I think like an anime critic like I follow on Twitter, and he was just experiencing season 1, and he was like asking like how fucking people get through this show? Like, what do they see in it? It's just boring. Like, it's. I have a good friend of mine. She's also like, it's just suffering. Like, just seeing Subaru's just horrible. It's like watching him be dumb. It's like this is just painful. And for me, like, I never had that issue. Like, I get it. Like, it backtracks a lot. It's kind of like it feels like it's moving at a snail's pace with how much he's resetting. But for me, it felt like it just made me more infinitely curious. Like, and mind you, I was watching it weekly. And
I was watching it when it came out too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I just want to know what happens next. And I don't care if he's resetting all these times. I'm very like I was invested in the fact that he was making progress. Like every reset, he was finding out a new little clue, a different perspective, something else that kind of helped on the journey. And obviously, it was like, okay. Like I felt this with the recent season 2, like finally we're done with this arc. Jesus Christ. But you know, it felt, the payoff felt satisfying. So, and definitely after rewatching ReZero season 1 director's cut, I could see how someone watching all of season 1, everything before like the second half, it's tough. Like once you get to like episode 18, then it kind of
everything else, I feel like it kind of is the best payoff for everything that came before.
Yeah, I feel like ReZero is one of those shows where no matter what score people give it, I feel like it's had every opinion in the book, and even people who probably feel somewhat similarly to me, I don't even agree with their opinions. Like most of the common ReZero criticisms I've seen, I think are really bad. Like, you know, I think they're kind of like, oh, I don't like him because he didn't pick Rem. Like that's like a really stupid reason I think to not like ReZero.
Yeah,
you know?
that doesn't bother me.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
I guess I shouldn't call it stupid. I think it's a very shallow reason, very frivolous
that's
reason.
That's better wording, yeah.
Yeah, I shouldn't be like, you're dumb, especially since I gave it a 6, and people would probably be like, you're dumb for giving it a 6. And I'm like, oh.
And a
whoops.
6 is decent, right?
That's so
decent.
for me, a 6 does not mean like the worst thing I've seen. A 6 is a show that I think positively of. Like I do think that ReZero has a lot of good aspects and a lot of good intrigue, but it kind of fell short on a bit of the, heavy hitting concepts that I was really invested in, which is why it's a 6. Like a 6 for me is still like a really decent show, and I would definitely consider it like one of the best isekais out there. So right. I have like a lot of positive things to say about ReZero season 1. I haven't seen season 2, but I think it just fell short of being something I feel like really strongly about. But
even after the last 6 episodes, where you do get like most of the payoff, like after episode 18.
That was kind of the issue. That was kind of paid into some of the issues I had. I was still like very invested, but I think my main caveat is I feel like they really wanted to hammer home the idea that like Subaru can't be the hero without getting help, or like Subaru needs to do something and he can't just be the hero. But then I feel like the way that they kind of resolved the issue of Subaru like really realizing what he had to do was a bit it was a bit underwhelming, just to kind of see like, he gets a pep talk from Rem, and then it seems like things kind of work out pretty well for him. But, full disclosure, it was like 2016 and I watched it weekly. So
okay, no, I forgive you. I think you need to rewatch it.
I do think so. Think so.
Hit different when I watched it the second time and I analyzed it. Also, it helps watching it on a binge. If you could watch the director's cut and binge it, honestly, it I don't know, it flows more seamlessly. Like it just, everything makes sense. Like that moment with Rem is such a culmination of all the shit he went through beforehand. So,
and for the record, I do think, and I do have some issues with the way they handle Rem, but it's just like so many, my main thing is it's like, there's so many small issues I have that kind of brought it down, but I don't have like the big issues that people have where they're like, it wasn't engaging at first. Like I always thought it was engaging. I always thought it was entertaining. I always thought it was interesting. I think the way they handle the time travel stuff is good. I don't have any issues with it, like fundamental issues. It's just so many small decisions here and there that I found underwhelming. But that could be fixed on a rewatch. That could definitely be fixed. So
right. And are people allowed to change their opinions?
Yeah, we'll find out. Hopefully I'm allowed to. But no, I've changed my opinions a lot on things. And I think it is a fine line between always changing your opinions and, sometimes changing them. But I think people can definitely change them.
Yeah, and it could be also like where you're at the moment in life. Maybe something like you just weren't looking for that type of show at the time, so it didn't hit like it was, probably meant to. And then later you're in a different point and, thinking about things differently. And then you watch and you're like, man, this hit different. This is what I needed.
And you know what watching ReZero weekly was like? That was like a shit show every week. Like in a good and bad way.
I remember just watching like episode 15 or 16 where it was like the third cycle of Subaru's suffering. Yeah. And people were just like, we can't do this anymore. Like, what is this? Like, and everyone was jumping ship. And I was like, I don't know, man. This is just painful. But again, watching it all together on a binge, it's just like, okay, this is easy. This is, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But wait, so I just want to kind of like hammer this on this. Let me reword what I'm going to say. Nail down this distinction for my own self. Like, why a 6 and not a 7? Like, what's that difference there?
I was sorry. So I was just thinking. I was thinking at the time. I'm like, do I feel as strongly about this show as I do my 7s? Like, do I find myself mostly thinking of the positives or the negatives that kind of weighed it down a bit? And I was in a weird spot because at the time, full disclosure, at the time I was talking with people who both loved and hated the show. There was like no middle ground. So I was constantly in discussions with people about it. And I was constantly talking with people who were, calling it the worst thing they've ever seen and calling it like one of the best shows they've seen. And I'm like, I don't even fully agree with either of these parties. Like, no one is kind of on the same wavelength as me. And I think I was on the fence between giving it a 7, but at the time I just felt like it was a bit more disappointing than what, the positives were. So I'm like, I can't give it a 7. I think it's a 6. I think it's a decent show. But I do think it has some issues. So that was like the weird conflict I was at.
Yeah, and you didn't want to validate either side. You were kind of like, you didn't feel as strongly as the ones that were for it, and you didn't feel as strongly as the ones that were against it. So you were like, I need to be somewhere in the middle.
And that's the thing is, I think even with shows that I've given a 7, I have like more solidified opinions on it. But like with ReZero, it's just like, I don't feel strongly on it.
It's more like a bland, like, I feel about it kind of.
Exactly. And that's something that I think a lot of 6s are just like, I don't feel strongly about this.
And that's a good way of putting it. I'll keep that in mind for my own score when I try to figure it out. And so you don't believe in 0.5s at all?
I get why people have 0.5s, but I don't like 0.5s. Right. I don't like them. I just like keeping it 1 to 10 really simple. And you can elaborate that something is like, maybe an 8 is almost a 9 or an 8 is almost a 7, but I don't like getting like 0.5s because then it's kind of like a 20-point scale. Like you're just adding more.
Gotcha. So you just, for simplicity's sake, you feel like it's just more straightforward and be like, just commit to the 6 or commit to the 7. None of this 0.5 shit.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Even though I use the meme Anthony Fantano
light 11.
Light 11. I still just like doing 1 to 10. I like kind of making a decision for myself. I know a lot of people don't like deciding, but I think kind of forcing yourself to pick a number helps solidify how you feel.
I mean, that's a good way of looking at it. It's really hard to commit to something, because you don't want to like, I don't know. I don't want to be too harsh. Like, no, you be harsh. Be yourself.
People when they're picking favorites, they're like, they're like both my kids. I can't pick. I'm like, no, I'm picking. I'm choosing between my children.
Forget attachment.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm not gonna let you go on this one. Okay. I want you to go back to your problems with Rem.
Okay.
I don't hear enough Rem slander, so let's get into it. What are your problems with Rem?
Okay. So this is kind of like, this might be very cynical and might sound like complete bullshit, but it's like a 5-year-old opinion, so I'm going for it. Okay. I think the problem with Rem is as soon as they had her character arc and then they had the big episode with her, which I think is a really excellent episode. Mm-hmm. It's very impactful. It's very memorable. But the problem is I feel like they kind of turned her, I know this sounds kind of bad. They turned her a bit too much into a waifu instead of a character. I think they kind of tried to idealize her too much. I think they turned her way too much into someone perfect. And I know people will say like, well, before she wasn't perfect, but like people forget that after episode, I think it was 18, the next episode, they have a battle and Rem is talking about how she wants to sniff Subaru. I remember this in great detail because it was so... I remember this.
I feel like, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm just having thoughts. Like, I feel like as a male viewer, like we get used to just, being like anime's anime and not minding that stuff too much. And you just get used to it. And like, I don't even remember that detail. I'm like, it's just Rem being Rem or it's cute or whatever. Yeah. But it's so refreshing to get like a female perspective on this because like, as guys, we relate to the male character by default. Yeah, that's our entry into the world. So like we'll see, the female characters, but we'll only see it as, kind of as an extension of how we, I don't know, like how we see them as guys. Cause we're not women. So we don't know what it's like to be them and what to be in their bodies and how to deal with those things and how they should act or what's kind of like a realistic, female character versus unrealistic, We're just happy that she likes the main guy. Yeah. So like, I feel like there's not a lot of that, at least from what I've seen in our community, that you get like like an actual grounded perspective on, like what a good female character is. So I'm just interested in kind of, your take on it.
Thanks. I mean, I'm also guilty of liking a lot of like waifu bait, like female characters too. I think there's just a certain amount of, I think the realism is lost a bit when you get like brutally turned down like that and you're still kind of trying to cheer the person up who turned you down. I just kind of expect a bit more bitterness involved, a bit more like, maybe not showing it to him, but like maybe a bit more, this really sucks. And I get that wasn't really the main focus. And I understand the point of that scene completely. But I think at that moment, when Rem had like the huge confession, I think all of the discourse surrounding ReZero turned into like weaponized waifu wars. It turned into like Amelia versus Rem, even when the story wasn't really Amelia versus Rem. Like that wasn't really. It's not a harem series where we're like having like allegiance wars, like quintuplets, which is fun because like you pick one and then you're like going to war with people. But I think the way that like Rem was portrayed in that scene, I think it was good. But then what happened after was like a bit iffy. But I don't like the way that they built Rem up like that. And then it became just like a waifu war where no one really cared about like the characters or like what, or their character progression. And it all just became like, why didn't Subaru pick Rem? Because she did all this for him. Why did he pick Amelia? And I think that definitely played into my opinion, even though I want to keep my opinion separate from the work. But I do think the environment in which they were both cultivated kind of like played an impression on it.
Oh, okay. But you mean like your opinion on the community?
The community. Sorry, that was confusing.
Because your opinion on the work is, it's valid. It's your opinion on the work, but you mean
Yeah. So I got kind of annoyed at hearing so much like waifu war stuff when I'm like, we were having like some cool discussions on the characters, and now we're just talking about why isn't Subaru picking Rem?
Just a spoiler for the web novel and to make people feel better, and you can correct me if I'm wrong if anyone knows, but apparently in the web novel it's confirmed that in this world polygamy is legal. It's legal, it's not frowned upon. Subaru is able to have 2 wives. He does pick Rem. He might get both of them. So
that's
so
everyone
it works out. So everyone wins. I think that might be a thing. I don't know if they confirmed that in the anime. Probably not. I don't think that would fly. But so that's enough about ReZero. Very good that we brought that up.
Yeah. Good I didn't get kicked off.
Yeah, good. No, but I think you had very like good reasoning about it, and it makes sense. I think the whole point is that you can articulate why something doesn't resonate with you, and I think it's all opinions.
Yeah.
And then, so how important do you think it is to know your own tastes? And this is going to lead into the next question, but.
I mean, I guess it depends on if you don't want to waste time or not, and if you don't want to just check everything out. But I think it is important to know what you like and just what you're naturally going to be interested in checking out. I don't know though, because I've seen some people who know their taste a bit too well. They are like, this is my type of show. This is my wheelhouse. I'm not deviating from it. And then they don't go outside their comfort zone. And I don't think that's good, because I think you should check out, especially for this medium where there's so much variety to different types of series. I think you should go outside and check out the different types of shows out there. But I do think it's important to know just like what your taste is and what you're probably not going to like. I mean, at this point, I know that I'm probably not going to like the average isekai coming out each season. Like, nothing against isekai and people who enjoy it, but I don't like seeing the same fantasy setting over and over again. So at this point, I'm like, I'm going to pass. I think I'm good.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you gave like the very practical response, which makes sense. It's like, okay, duh. Like, if you don't want to waste your time, you should know what you like. But I've always been the type that I kind of check out everything, like more or less. Yeah.
And I do think that's good. I think that's good to check out different things, because I do see some people who are either like, they'll only watch Battle Shonen or they'll only watch Slice of Life. And then the problem is they comment on the other types of series. Like, you see Battle Shonen people call Slice of Life really boring. And then you see Slice of Life people call Battle Shonen like meathead bullshit, like whatever. Yeah. And so I'm like, both of you guys aren't watching the other series and you're just kind of talking out of your ass. Like, you don't, So I would rather them check out everything and then form an opinion instead of just sticking to their own group and then, making baseless claims.
Yeah, and then there's sometimes something that ends up being an exception, something that like is not in your wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
You're not a slice of life person, but there is this one slice of life that just was like, oh my God, this. I don't care if it's a slice of life. This was amazing, and it you wouldn't have known if you didn't check it out. Just like a ton of people love Gurren Lagann, but I've never watched any other mecha, or know any other mecha. Yeah. But that's fine too, it's as long as, but you wouldn't have known if you didn't check it out.
Exactly.
And then should fans, and this is like in the same vein, but slightly different, should fans know their top 10 anime?
I mean, I don't know if they need to. I think it's fun. I think it's good to have a top 10. It depends on like what they're doing, you know? It like sometimes I see AniTubers or just like people who talk in the community in general, like who speak about it a lot, they don't have a top 10. Yeah. And if they don't have one, I'm like, oh, like I want to know what your top 10 is, but I don't think they like need to have one. You know, it's all for fun, but I just get disappointed because I'm curious and I want to know.
Oh yeah. Let me reword that. Not need to have one, but what value do you see in having one? Like if I asked you, hey, should I make a top 10? Like, do you think I would get any value out of it? What value would that be? Do you see any in having a top 10 defined, more or less?
Yeah, I do think that's a great way of thinking about it, is like, what value do I get from having a top 10? And I think it just like kind of forces you to think in terms of what you value the most. Like, what did you have the most fun with? What did you value more? What show did you value more than other, like show or movie, you know, which experiences stood out enough for you to say like, okay, this was a top 10 experience. And I think this is worth putting in a top 10 that reflects me. Yeah. And I do think it's a cool practice, because without like making top 10 lists or making any kind of lists myself, I probably would not have a better idea of why I enjoy a certain series more than another, you know?
Yeah. And then, you know, I wasn't going to do this, but let's get into your top 10 a little bit.
Oh no.
just briefly, just as an example. I actually have a question. So is there any anime that you consider, like, I don't know, not as well written, or maybe not universally acclaimed, or not considering a masterpiece or something, but you feel like you like it and it's reflective of you, and that's why it's within that line of thinking, that's why it's in your top?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because up until recently, I think my top 10 was kind of most people could agree that the shows in there were like generally considered good. I don't know. They were pretty acceptable favorites. And then I put Promare in my top 10, and I think I got some random Curious Cat question. I don't know if you know that one, where people submit like anonymous questions.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. I've debated whether like, is it worth starting one? Like, should I? I see some trash ones that I'm just like, I don't know.
That definitely has less value than a top 10, but it can be pretty fun. Yeah, so I got some that was like, why do you have Promare in your top 10? It's like so shitty. Like, what are you doing? And me putting Promare in my top 10 was like a reflection of my new philosophy that like the more I engage with something and the more entertainment value I get out of it, both like emotionally, intellectually, conceptually, I need to value that. And I've seen Promare at least like 7 or 8 times. And that's a better experience that I've had with most anime films and TV series in general. And, you know, most people don't like it for the themes. They're like, what themes? But I actually do really enjoy the way it has commentary on environmentalism and the way that like humanity as a whole, like their emotional state plays into the environment and the connections we have between those. And I think the way that they portray that in such a classic trigger, over the top, high energy, you know, really cool aesthetic, like the overall product of it was something that I really appreciate, that I think I was kind of looking for a while, which is why it feels like a top 10.
I think a lot of people, the criticisms that I have seen, not getting into it too much, but is that it's like recycled, it's Gurren Lagann, like recycled and made like super saturated and like super busy with everything like going on in it. And it's like, you know, for those reasons, it's not good, or it doesn't stand out on its own. But you disagree, and you don't care for that.
I do. So I definitely have a very different experience with the Promare than probably 99% of the people, because I was fortunate enough to see it at Anime Expo and then see the trigger panel afterwards. So we got and that had Imaishi, like the creators, everyone was there, and they kind of had like a talk on Promare afterwards. And the common comment that Gallo looks just like Kamina, so he's like Kamina 2.0 came up. And the way that they viewed it was kind of like, it's not exactly the same as Gurren Lagann, but this is kind of like the new generation's Gurren Lagann, in the sense that they can get into trigger works and go back and watch it. Yeah. So I do think that there are some key similarities between the two, but when you actually look at what core message both series have and like the actual characters in it, they're very, very different. You know, I don't think Gurren Lagann is about environmentalism or the environment. It's like a lot more, it has a different like thematic core to it. Yeah. And I think that's also completely different in Promare. It has like a lot of different commentary on their society that's very different. Yeah. And so I think on the surface they can look similar, but when you actually like get down to the meat and potatoes of it, they're very different series.
I feel like, and it's definitely, which sometimes fans, not everyone has the luxury of having, is when you get like more context into the creation of like a show or a series, or you heard the director's commentary, you even read an interview as to what they were thinking, like that already changes your perception of the show. So I don't know which one's more valid, to have that commentary where you're like, oh, okay, I get it more now, or to taking the work as itself, like surface value, and seeing if it hits or if it doesn't hit. Because if it didn't hit without that extra kind of commentary experience, then that means that was a shortcoming of it.
Yeah.
So,
And I think both are valid. I do think it also, like, if you're not really interested in it, you're probably not going to go seek that out. Like, I was into it from the beginning because I like Trigger and I like their previous works, Trigger, Dynex, both. So like I was already in that situation of like learning more about it because I knew I would be interested in it, even though I had no idea if I would like the movie or not. Yeah. But I mean, I've been in that position too, where I'm like, so I'm not really that into this. And people are like, go watch this video, go read this essay or interview. And I'm like, okay, I might, but I'm not really that into it. So I might not want to go seek that out. So I'm never going to hold that against someone,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. It's if you want to seek it out or if you don't. This is actually a good transition point because my next section. So actually, first question, was Promare a recent addition to your top 10? Because what I have here, I guess, is not updated because it's not.
Oh, no. Sorry if it's. Oh, well, my old one's, it was kind of recent. But I mean, if you have an old one, it's still probably.
I didn't even think it was that old. And I was like, oh, it's not up here in the top 10. So
whoops. Sorry, I ruined the stream again.
No, it's all right. And this is actually a good transition because my next section is we're going to talk about some more anime that I saw on your list, and there were some scores, and just kind of seeing like how you fell on that score, what you kind of think about it, and it also had to do with anime that you think are sort of not universally acclaimed but that you liked. And the first one I had on this list was Promare. Yeah. So you already kind of answered that one. And I actually, to give my take on it, I really enjoyed it because I was, full disclosure, at that same panel with Trigger. And I think I told you before. Yeah. And maybe it was the energy of the room. Maybe it's because, again, wild. It was crazy, earthquake and all. Like it was.
Because we were there with an earthquake, It
was super fun. Just the movie was high octane. It was literally Gurren Lagann on crack. And and I wasn't a huge fan of Gurren Lagann, before that. And I watched this movie and I'm like, this was a damn good time. So I was surprised because I thought everyone walked out of that panel feeling the same way, like energized, like this was awesome. Like this, we're so excited for what Trigger's going to do next. And I was surprised to hear like later, like, oh, people didn't like Promare, or like it's so kind of polarizing, or I don't know. People just did not feel the same way. Yeah. So that was surprising for me, but.
Yeah. And I do recognize that we watched it in like peak environment. Like, I don't think a lot of people, unfortunately, I mean, definitely now because of COVID, unfortunately, but I mean, watching a high action anime film that's so fun, like a Trigger film, in a room with like 2,000 weebs who are screaming out at every reference is like peak environment to watch Promare. So I feel bad others wouldn't be in that position, but.
And you, so you give it a 10 out of 10, right?
So funny enough, the first time I watched it, I gave it an 8 because I was like, how much of this is just me loving it because I saw it at Anime Expo? And this is kind of a flex. I think I told you this before, but I have to say it because it's in with the score. So I won something at the panel, like me and like 2-3 other people out of 2,000. We won the like Shikishi. I don't have it, but it's like a custom drawing from Imaishi of like Gallo. Yeah, no, I think awesome. It was Leo. Yeah, it looks really cool. Trigger tweeted it out. I have the tweet somewhere, but so that was such a magical experience because I don't win stuff much. That I wasn't sure how much of my enjoyment of the film was like, I saw it at Anime Expo and I won something.
Most people don't win stuff, just, clarification.
I'm normally, Yeah, most people don't win things, and most of the time I'm one of those people. So this was a very rare occasion. Yeah, it was like a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory moment. But so I wasn't sure. I was like, do I just love this because I won something? Then I went and I saw it again when it came in theaters, and I was like, I still really like this, and I'm not winning anything this time. This is awesome. And then I saw it like 2 or 3 more times, and I'm like, okay, this is the most engaging anime film I've seen. I have to give this a 10. I've seen this so many times. I have so much fun with it. I conceptually love it. I got to do it. I got to give it a 10.
Yeah, I think I'm somewhere there. Again, I have not rewatched it since that panel ever, but I think it's still from that experience, and it could be the experience. It's either an 8 or a 9. It's up there.
That's high though. I respect it.
You know, it didn't transcend for me on an emotional level, but the experience was awesome. But the one thing I do remember a criticism was like that the characters, like they're very shallow, like superficial, like there was no depth to them. They were just kind of there. And like, do you either agree with that, or do you think it just for this type of movie, especially because it's an anime film, it doesn't matter?
You know, I think it's a bit of both. I can understand it, especially with the side characters. They were kind of like the same reiteration of Trigger side characters that I've seen.
Yeah.
I disagree with it in terms of the main 3, Gallo, Leo, and Cray. Yeah, I think they all have a lot going for them thematically, and I think they have depth. But I do have to say, I have heard the criticism the characters are shallow for literally every anime film. Like, any anime film you can think of, I've heard someone say the side characters are not that good. And to an extent, you have to, I think it's 2 hours long. Like, they're not going to do a lot.
Yeah. It's again, there's a lot of limitations with anime films, and that's why it's like, it can be very hit or miss. It's kind of hard to tell a full story, at least within anime films in general, but anime films, I think, struggle with this a lot. And that's why with this next one, I think we might have some mixed feelings about this one. I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. What do you think about this God's gift to Earth, this beautiful movie?
Okay, I have to say, full disclosure, I do not. Let's see. I love your chat. They all like Promare. They've seen Promare. You have the best fans. I love your chat.
This is actually a friend of mine. She's seen it 10 times in
theaters.
I
love her. I love her. That's me. That's the level I'm at. She's the best. I love her. So Pancreas, for full disclosure, I do not fault anyone for enjoying this film. I don't. I understand. If you love this film, good for you. I don't hold it against you. I don't think you're dumb if you enjoy it. Full disclosure. I had a very bad experience with this film for the same reason that I think a lot of people like it. And that's because they have such a personal connection to it that it really resonated with them. And I could have a personal connection with it if I thought it was executed better. But because it wasn't, it fell so flat for me that I found it like kind of insulting to my own life experiences with similar themes. And I didn't find it like executed well enough to kind of make up for that, which is why I dislike it so much. So it's kind of it's in a weird box.
I mean, I feel like I watched this movie in theaters when it came stateside with my friends. We watched it. I only watched it once. And this movie is actually something I bonded with you over. I think I saw you give it like a 1 out of 10, and I was like, I quote tweeted like, "You too? I'm not the only one," because I was surprised when like I think Giga put out a video about it, like saying it's like the best, or the waifu that shouldn't have died, and like other people praising it. I'm like, what did they watch? Like, and this was supposed to be. I'm like more of a, when I watch shows, like I'll forgive shows if they're more emotional and they kind of resonate with me on an emotional level, pull at my heartstrings. And I felt like this was trying to be that movie. But the way it felt as I watched it, and I only watched it once, was like, I don't know. The final season of Game of Thrones? So like where they made a lot of jokes about like how, where in like a stage play or like a thing where I don't have the right wording, but where you're not supposed to see the wiring pulling up, but then it's coming undone and you can see the wires. In Pancreas, like I got what they were going for, but it was too telegraphed. Like I could see it and it just wasn't working. And I'm like, I know you're trying to make this work, but this girl is way too toxic. Like she's this isn't right.
I always hate the term emotional manipulation because I find when people use it, like when they call something emotionally manipulative, I'm like I just think it's such bad criticism. But if I was ever going to entertain that, it would be for Pancreas, where I'm like, I see what you're trying to do. It's not working. Good try.
It's just like, you're just so emotionally manipulative. Like, this isn't good. Like, I don't know. Yeah. And then the ending, I just wasn't for it. It didn't. I saw what it was trying to do, but it didn't work on me, which, again, I'm usually more forgiving, but we can agree on that. And I needed to start us, I needed to start us off on that one so we can get into this one. Another anime film that I think we're going to disagree on, maybe. Weathering with You.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, wait, I get to be on the other side. I thought it was going to be another one. Weathering with You was interesting. I got to see this with my mom. She liked it. Yeah, she liked it. She thought it was really pretty, but Weathering with You is such an interesting one because I think for the first time, I'm in the positive side for a Shinkai film, and everyone else is like, no, I don't like this. It wasn't as good as Your Name. It's not good. And I definitely get it. I'm in that
camp. I'm in that camp.
Yeah. And I definitely get it. I definitely get not liking it as much, but I appreciate, I think he took a real risk with the story and characters. And he did something with the characters that he didn't really do in his other films, which was show their relationship outside of a montage. And that's something I kind of had a beef with in some of his other films. And by beef, I mean, like, it's not bad. It's just like a small gripe I have because I couldn't get attached to the characters in his other films as much because most of their relationship happened within a quick, like, 5-minute montage that like quickly zoomed through everything. And that works for people, like, and that works generally. And they're still fun to watch, but I
mean, it's a film technique for a reason.
Yeah, for sure. And I respect it. It just doesn't make me feel as attached to a couple when they're supposed to be the main emotional component of a series. So a movie, not a series. So in Weathering with You, I appreciated that we really got to see the development of the main two for the majority of the series. And they spent a lot of time on that. So I was able to connect with them a lot more, which made it easier for me to overlook some of the weird stuff that happens at the end.
I mean, like, listen, that stuff was good. I watched it with the same group of friends, and that was a funny experience because when we walked out, like three of us, there was four of us, and three of us were just ragging on it. Yeah. And then my one friend was like, "Oh, I actually liked it." Like, no, shut up. We're not listening to you. And then like, let's just rag on it. But because, and again, I'm more forgiving. It's weird because, besides just saying, oh, it was kind of like Your Name, but Your Name did it better. Yeah. And just to give a montage, to be a little more fair with it, again, the constraints of an anime film, I don't blame using a montage because it's hard to convey that. But I think Weathering with You did that well. But besides, like I had some misgivings about it throughout the way, along the way, like, and the pacing and whatever, but it was really that ending. Like, it just, it didn't logically like make sense. Like, I was even questioning, like, normally I'd forgive that stuff, but I was like, what's the message? What is it trying to say here? Like, F the world, like, just, get, get the girl, get what you want, screw the world or screw Tokyo.
I don't know if you got to see it. Did you get to see Digi's video on Weathering with You?
No, I did not.
I really like her take on it. And I'm not going to try and mail this in and pretend it was my opinion because I liked it. And then I liked Digi's opinion on it. And I just kind of reference it because they worded it so much better than I did. But I like their take on it where they say that the message isn't just to say, like, screw the world over for the waifu. It's, the world is always changing and you can't be, you're never 100% certain what will happen. So you can't sacrifice your own like day-to-day happiness for the sake of something that's so uncertain. Yeah. And I think that's a nice way of looking at it, but I can 100% understand why people are like, screw the world. I have my waifu.
I get that because I had a good conversation with a good friend of mine, felt more positively about it. He's more on your camp. He gave it like a 7 out of 10. Yeah. And he had that conversation with me and was like, gave me the whole, it's supposed to be bittersweet and sort of, what they were kind of, and I saw hints of that, of what they were trying to go for, that kind of seeing hope in like the negativity. Like, we could still get through this if we're together, not all hope's lost. And it was kind of going for that. And I was like, okay, I get that. And I tried like rewatching it again to sort of like see it with a fresh pair of eyes, but I couldn't get through it. Like, I just wasn't enjoying it. And I'm like, you know what? Screw this. I'm not changing it. Like, if I'm not enjoying it. but beautiful movie. I just felt like I don't know. Like Shinkai did take some risk, but I felt like he still tapped into too much of trying to kind of recreate the appeal of Your Name.
I do agree with that. I think he was trying to hold on to elements of Your Name, but still try and do something different. And I think at that point, you just got to do something completely different.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one wasn't too bad. You know, we had a little bit of a boxing match, but it ended up on friendly terms. But this next one, this one might tear us apart. Wolf Children.
Oh no. No. What did you do?
Okay.
No.
So I'd heard about Wolf Children for years from good friend, other people were like, "Oh my god, you have to watch this, like masterpiece." Like they didn't tell me much, just, this is like masterpiece levels, it'll break you, you'll cry, whatever. And then one day I was just like bored, and then we were like, I was with my fiance, we're like, "Oh, you want to watch something? Let's watch Wolf Children." I've been meaning to get around to this for years, and we watched it. And I just felt like I got what it was going for. It just felt long. Like I kept being aware of the runtime. Like I liked the potential and what was being set up in the beginning, but then it just felt like, when is this going to be over? Like, I don't know. And I didn't want to feel that way. So I think I ended up giving it like a 7 out of 10.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. But again, this comes with the expectation of this was, and people still stand by, this is like a 10 out of 10. This is an anime masterpiece classic.
Yeah, so I used to have it as, I gave it a 10. It used to be my number one anime film, and it used to be the only anime film I gave a 10. I think it was the first and like the only one for a bit. But I definitely understand that, actually. I definitely get it, because the reason it's not my number one anime film anymore is because it does feel like a lot when you watch it. It feels like you're getting into something where you enjoy it, but I can't casually put on Wolf Children. I can't just casually put it on and vibe with Wolf Children and be like, we're just having a chill, fun night watching Wolf Children where
hey,
like,
guys, come over, let's get some popcorn, some pizza, let's watch Wolf Children. Yeah,
exactly. And I think it's like a fun movie. I showed my mom Wolf Children on Mother's Day and she loved it too. It was actually embarrassing because I was like crying at Wolf Children and she's like, "Look at the pretty snow." And I'm like, "Mom, I'm sobbing because I love you and I love moms. Stop doing this to me."
Like that. I could see myself watching that with my mom. Like I've never shown my mom an anime. I'm still planning on one day showing her Evangelion because she's like a Christian and I just want her to like rebuke me and
Mom, look, the crosses. We're good.
Look, it's cool. It's like, that's not how it works, son. But I guess what I appreciate about Wolf Children is like when I thought about like, oh, maybe this is how like my mother felt, or like raising me or whatever, and like those aspects of having to deal with your child growing up and not having to choose his own path and partying with him, and like I got that, and I got the whole like that's what we were talking about earlier. Like when you get something, but it just doesn't, it's kind of like I get it. And that the whole inherent beauty of that. But I think I'd have to watch it again because I think also, at least for me, watching something with someone else could like change your experience and your perspective of it, as opposed to you're watching it by yourself and just taking it in, taking your time, rewinding something. Because I do like to rewind a lot. I get lost in thought and then I have to be like, oh shit, I like didn't pay attention for the last 2 minutes, and then I go back. And that's not something I do often with other people. So.
Yeah, 100%. So I could definitely see where you're coming from. I've been in that boat so many times. And I think Wolf Children was just one of those ones that clicked for me, especially the emotional part in the last third. It just all clicked. And that was kind of a high emotional resonance that I've had with an anime film that I wouldn't have until A Silent Voice. But so I can understand, especially like either that moment not hitting as hard or leading up to it just not hitting as hard. So I definitely get it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those. I'd probably have to watch it again on my own, but I guess, but it's also okay if it just stays at a 7. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
Do not worry. I do not think that 7 is a bad score. I think that's like such a fair score.
I think I gave it a 7 because I got what it was going for, and it wasn't bad. It just felt like But well, I don't even know if I'll bring this one up. So this wasn't too bad. This was okay.
Yeah,
This next one isn't bad, but we have to talk about it. It's Your Name. But I think
I've been waiting for this the whole time.
I think I get your reasons already because we touched on it a little bit. But I think like Your Name is either a 10 out of 10 for me or a 9 out of 10. It's up there.
Yeah, I definitely get that. So I seen Your Name 3 times. I saw it wants the super duper bootleg version. I don't know if you remember that time where like the entire world but the US had it. That period where like everyone got to see it and we were last somehow.
I was mad, but I waited until it was in theaters and I watched it when it finally came into theaters. But I was mad. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, I was like, this is the first time I was like, you know, I realized how spoiled we were since we normally get everything first and we didn't get it. So as soon as I could get to see it, I'm like, okay, I'm seeing it. And then I really liked it. I thought it was really good. I gave it an 8. Then I watched it again with better subs. And I was like, you know, this is good, but I'm just not I didn't enjoy it as much as I did the other time. And then I went to go see it in theaters and I was like, you know, this is a movie I like. It's fun. I could recommend it to people, but I don't like really connect with them that much. And I do think like the montage is some aspect of it where like most of their relationship is kind of like developed through the montage. But that's why it just kind of felt like more of a decent movie that if it was on, I would watch, but I don't really find myself thinking about Your Name unless someone brings it up. And that feels like a big difference between like a higher score where it's like, you know, it's in my head rent free versus I would not think of this if someone didn't bring it up.
Yeah, I definitely think maybe you watching it 3 times, especially like close to each other, you know, helped kind of reaching that view. You felt like you were kind of just over it, or maybe you started seeing all the what I would describe as the magicalness, you know, coming undone. Because when I watched it, I think I just watched it that one time in theaters, and it just felt like this magical like 2 hours with like, you know, it was funny, it was cute, you know, you got the montage, I was being sold on it, and then like, you know, the like logic defying, you know, stuff that was happening, but also the beauty. Like I was just charmed all the way. And I don't know if I ever did rewatch it or had like a full rewatch later. So I just knew I really enjoyed it from that one time, but I couldn't understand why people were picking it apart so much or just saying like, oh, well, this didn't make sense. This wasn't explained. The characters, you know, relationship wasn't as developed. And like, I didn't see all those flaws, and I didn't want it to like, let it affect what I like enjoyed that one time.
And 100% credit where credit is due. I think Your Name is gorgeous looking, absolute top tier production. And I do think it is possibly the most easily recommendable anime film out there. Like I could recommend Your Name to anyone with no misgivings about that they would possibly not enjoy it. And I think that has a lot of value in it. I think it's really saying something that you can recommend an anime film and get more people into the medium. And that's not something I would even give to Wolf Children, a film I like a lot more. Like you could probably show people that, but there's some kind of weird moments that wouldn't work. And I don't think Your Name has that. So I think there's a lot of value in Your Name's existence in the medium.
Well, there's a reason I think why Your Name had so much mainstream success, and I think it's because it's so accessible to a general audience, and that's why Makoto Shinkai wasn't happy with it. You know? It was just like this. I didn't even finish this film. Like I rushed it. You know, it wasn't up to what he wanted. But it was such a departure of all of his films, like what he was going for beforehand, which was more a somber,
a happy ending.
Yeah, first film to have a happy ending. But I don't think you're a big fan of his films in general, right?
Okay, so I like him, but I don't love him. Guess someone's at the door.
You gotta get the door.
Oh, yeah. I'm not. Yeah. 1 sec.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, babe, someone's at the door. I don't think they're there anymore.
Hi, guys. We'll continue here on the stream. Oh, she's back.
I wish that was something I could work into a Your Name reference, but I mean, I think someone just dropped something off. Oh, well. Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
It's all good. I think it was only like 2 seconds, so.
Okay. Well, I think about Makoto Shinkai, I think I like him, but I don't love him as much as everyone else. And I think it's just his general style. I recognize that everything he makes looks gorgeous, but I'm generally a fan of series or movies that have couples that are more built on the foundation of like dialogue. And he's a lot more, I think, favorable towards like meaningful silences that are very atmospheric and, you know, like kind of build over time. And I totally respect that, but it's just not how I emotionally connect with characters. You know, like in, you know, a show we both like, Monogatari, all of like Araragi and Senjo Gohara's development is like witty banter. and other things. But that's like something I relate to more and I connect with. Compare that to something like I'm thinking of like 5 centimeters per second, where like the emotion is conveyed through meaningful silences, the direction, and I respect it, but it doesn't work for me as much. So I respect his films and I think they're pretty good, but like he's not my director.
Gotcha. Who is your director?
If I had to pick one, it would be Satoshi Kon.
Okay.
I love him. I love his style.
I still need to watch Millennium Actress, but I did finally watch Perfect Blue like a year ago. Like I watched it recently, so that's at least I know that, and I've definitely watched Tokyo Godfathers.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, that's enough.
Millennium Actress is good too, and my favorite is Paranoia Agent by him.
Which I still need to watch. That's been on my list for years, but I think I have a good sense if I've watched Perfect Blue. So
yeah, if you've watched Perfect Blue, you get it, and that's I think the reason he's my director, or like like my MC, like my director, is because a lot of his films I love because of his directing. Like that's the reason I love them.
Yeah, he's just like it's his directing is so unique, and he has so much control over the movie that it's like when it's his film, it's his film.
Yeah,
and it's a different experience.
Yeah,
but here's another one that I think I just want to hear your thoughts on it, because I think you weren't as positive on this one as the rest of the world. Makia.
Yeah, this is like a tamer version of this is a tamer version of Pancreas. Did you like Makia?
I did not.
Oh, okay, cool.
I watched it with friends as well. I think the same group, but we watched it because I got it on Blu-ray for my fiance, and then she just never watched it. And I'm like, I got this on Blu-ray for you. He's like, oh, okay. And then one day we were hanging out. Okay, let's finally watch this because I have it on Blu-ray. And then we watched it, and I heard so many like things about it. So many people rave about it. I like Mari Okada, and I was like, oh my God, her directorial debut, it's got to be amazing. And then I watched it, and I'm like, what am I watching? Like, I got it, but then some things didn't make sense, and I was just like, this was like Pancreas. Like, I get what it's going for. I get it, the heartstrings it's gonna, trying to pull here, but some things don't make logical sense.
Yeah. I don't know if you agree or disagree with this on Mari Okada, because I have like mixed
love-hate relationship.
Yeah, love-hate relationship with her. I think she's really good at presenting like very authentic, sometimes awkward feelings very well. Yeah. But she doesn't know how to resolve those feelings. And I think that might be like in tune with a lot of her real life issues and like real life experiences, where she's been in so many awkward situations of like, I know her relationship with her mom is really weird. I forget the details, but I think she's so good at creating those circumstances. But the way she chooses to resolve them, I'm like, I can't, this is so weird.
So I don't know too much about her. Like I haven't looked into, aside from her career and stuff that she's worked on, I haven't looked too much into like what her like personal life or situation is. So I don't know too much about that. So that's interesting to know. That's cool that you brought that up. But in terms of her works, I totally agree with that in regards to what is that show called? The most recent series she worked on. Like one. Yeah, that one.
That one. That's what I was thinking about.
That one was super interesting. Had like a lot of potential. I think people loved it. But last 3 episodes, I was like, okay.
Yeah, because I think that was so good, especially in the beginning of like establishing the awkwardness of like, teenage girls thinking about sex and like how they relate to it, and that was like so authentic and good. But then you like fast forward 5-6 episodes and you're like, what's going on? Like, like some of the stuff they have actually going on, and they don't really address how like illegal and sus it is. You're like, what happened? We were like at a good spot like 5 episodes ago.
Yeah,
why aren't we resolving this well?
What was good about it, what made it interesting in the beginning was like the level of insight it had to certain things. And you were just like, oh, I never thought about that, or I didn't know that, or like, oh, that's super interesting. Like, how are they going to explore this? But then it took it in this other direction. It's like, wait, no, what are you doing? I hope it doesn't do this. Like, and then it's like, oh no, it's going here. And then it tries to wrap it up nicely at the end, but then it's not. It just felt very loose. So I think I get what you're saying in the literal way of she doesn't know how to
resolve these awkward feelings she has. And I think that comes through in her work. And maybe it works for some people because you're not supposed to resolve them well. But when you're watching something in fiction, you're like, I kind of want this to be resolved in like a way that makes sense.
I feel like, for example, End of Ava.
Yeah.
raises all those awkward, like intense feelings, but it doesn't resolve them.
Yeah. But that's also, I think, works because they don't try to resolve them per se.
Here they're trying to find answers, and that's the problem.
And that's the thing. I think on a smaller level, my issues with Makuya is it tried to do too much and didn't fully accomplish them. Like, this huge fantasy establishment, this like battle, whatever was going on in the fantasy aspect. Yeah. And then you also have the mother-son thing, which was kind of handled better, but then still had its weird moments.
I don't know. That whole thing was like just a turn off to me. I was like, I get what you're trying to do, but I don't care for it. And it's like, but the thing that like really threw me off, and maybe this is one of those cases where I didn't grasp it. With at the end with her friend that she goes to save, that's the mother of the child, and she's just jumping off she's finally gonna be with her child, and then she just jumps off the rooftop. Like, wait, what?
That was one of like the dumber scenes I've seen in anime, because in the scene before, her friend who was the queen who had like a daughter, the whole like everything's burning down, and then she runs into like her ex-boyfriend or whatever, and he's like, "Yo, we're getting you out of here," and she's like, "No, I can't. Like the thought of my daughter is keeping me alive."
Yeah.
And then in the next scene, she sees her daughter, and she's like, we out. And then she jumps off a roof. And there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more that goes into it. But just the scenes back to back, I'm like, what? Yeah. What did you do?
I think that's the moment I officially checked out. Like I was like, what? I don't get it. I don't see what the whole thing about it is. So yeah. And then one last thing on Mari Okada in general. I think the work why I said like I enjoy her work, that's mostly coming from Nagi no Asukara, which like
I do like that show. Yeah.
That's the show like I really enjoyed. It pulled at my heartstrings. I was like, I was waiting for the conclusion. Like, but I guess I could agree with that. The second half after the time skip wasn't as strong, I think, as the first half. Like I was still satisfied with it. But if we're going by she's not good at the whole resolving part, then I think that tracks.
Conversely, I love that. I don't think I love Nagi no Asukara, but I respect it and I really enjoy it, definitely more than the other works we've talked about. My equivalent is Kisniver that she worked on, which I know
she did that.
A lot of people had issues with that, but I liked it because I think the over-the-top self-aware nature kind of worked with her style, because she didn't have to, she could just be so on the nose with things and it kind of worked. But
I liked it. I like Kisniver. That's part of why I liked the part about Darling in the Franxx that I did enjoy. That's like, it's like Kisniver, but with robots. But I did enjoy Kisniver. I think that was like a solid 7, I think. There was issues, but I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed what it was kind of exploring. But that's another one that she wrote. So there you go. That's why I enjoyed her work. But Nagi no Asukara, I think, I don't know. At the time I really enjoyed it. I think 7 or 8.
Same.
Personally. But here's another one where if you're willing to still continue here.
Oh, I have a lot of fun with this. I'm just like anticipating. I'm like, what bad score is gonna pop up?
One that I only watched this while it was airing. So disclaimer, I barely remember it. I only remember bits and pieces. I just remember how I felt about it. Mm-hmm. And I was surprised to find out that people thought so differently. They had a completely different experience with it than I did. Golden Time.
Oh, I watched that later. Oh, that's an interesting one.
I watched it while it was airing, and
that's awesome. I can only imagine that airing. That seems interesting.
I was so frustrated. Week to week, like I was watching with a friend, and we were at a con one weekend, and we were catching up. Like the day before the con actually started, we were like in the room, and then like let's catch up on our weekly anime while we're here. And we had our list of what we were watching weekly, and then Golden Time was one of them. And I remember both of us feeling so frustrated. Like it was towards the latter half of the show, like 18 or 19, where like the characters had like some freak out or whatever. It was so over the. What was that?
Ghost Bonry or whatever.
Yeah, and it was so over the top, and I don't even remember. We were just like, no, like,
nope.
Like, yeah.
So yeah, that was one. I think I gave it a 7 because at the time I watched it, I just binged it, and at the time I was so appreciative of seeing a rom-com in a college setting that I was like, oh, look at this, like it's in a college setting, it's so cool. And then I liked what's the main girl, Kyoko or whatever?
Oh, Kaga Coco.
Kaga Coco. Yeah. She was pretty cool because she kind of sucked, but she was like interesting about how she sucked.
That's a good way of putting
it. She does suck though, right?
You started to say like she's kind of cool. I'm like, and then you were like, but she kind of sucked. I'm like, yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Like she sucks and she's annoying, but they explore why she is, and like it makes sense for her character. So like I respected it, but I think that's the same author as Toradora, and I'm not sure how you feel about.
That's exactly why I went into it. Like now I'm starting to remember, like, I'm expectant of what's gonna happen, but it did not. Yeah. From the little I remember of Toradora, because I'm not like a huge like my god Toradora, but I respect it and I thought it was good. I didn't reach the same like payoffs, at least for me, that with Toradora. But like so basically like I watched the show, I was like just happy to be done with it. I did finish it. And like someone, I think one time I ended up talking with someone, or I was on like a Discord or something, and I said something about it. Like I slandered it, and the guy just went ape shit like down my throat about like how it is the best representation of like real relationships, like there's like in anime, because there's barely like, and I got this opinion later on, like in a YouTube comment, like and I've seen it a few times, like where like it's such a great illustration of actual relationships in anime, and
because naturally there's Ghost Bond, where he just shows up and fucks up relationships. Like you can't say it's grounded when they have like, I don't even remember the full context, but like isn't it like amnesia or something?
Yes.
So he gets like, he has like brain damage, and he just randomly like has amnesia and shit, and then he just like, but then he like overcomes it. I don't no, like that was weird.
Like it started to feel like a soap opera with the twists and turns where things just come out of left field, and it's like you have an evil stepbrother. Like that didn't happen, by the way. For
he was his own evil stepbrother.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it was like, oh my god, it was weird though. Like that was just weird. Like we didn't even need that subplot in any capacity. We didn't need it.
That was one of those cases where I felt like, like I guess because I had only watched it while it aired, to where I felt like, maybe I missed something. Maybe I'm the one that's like not informed. Maybe I need to rewatch it to sort of, like to get it. Like, and I still haven't revisited it, but it's one of those that has made me feel like maybe I need to take another look.
I think you're fine. I think you got it right the first time. That's when if you hear someone say that Golden Time is the best representation of adult relationships in anime,
or one of the few, like one of the few,
that's when you got to hit them with the go watch Nana. Just go watch Nana.
I still haven't watched it. It's still on my list.
Well, the best news I can tell you is that no one gets overtaken by their past brain damaged self and just randomly do shit. They don't do that. It's just normal people making bad decisions that still make sense but are sad.
I've heard great things. People have told me like they're surprised it's a shoujo with the amount, like the it's not a josei, it's a shoujo. So but the thing that turn off is the pained fans that are waiting for it to come back. So it's like maybe I should wait, the hope that one day it does come back.
It's probably not coming back, but I will say that it ends at like a decent enough spot. It's a slightly better ending spot than Hoseki no Kuni, but it's still not that good. It's just a good, like, they can cut it off at a good spot. Yeah. So I think it's worth it, but it is painful both in the context of the series and because we have to wait.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for Hunter x Hunter, so I gotta weigh my odds, to what else I want to wait for, Now I'm waiting for Kingdom Hearts 4, so that's.
Oh, that's right, we have that now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I have that on as a bonus topic if you want to talk about.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's not anime, but I found out you're a fan, so I'm like, we should talk about it.
Yeah, close enough.
Other one, okay, I think like we've gotten the gist of. I'm starting to understand like kind of like your taste and kind of your problems with certain things. Like the next one is just A Place Further Than the Universe. And I saw you gave it a 7, and I think I'm in the same spot. I watched it while it was airing, and it was like people were raving about it. I totally loved what they did with the ending, but like in general, I felt like, okay, this was not like, I don't know, like it didn't change my world. It wasn't. And I felt like weird because I was like, oh, maybe it, it should have, or it was this transcendent experience, and I'm like, it was okay, it was good, it had good ideas. My fiance refused to watch it completely. She was just like, I don't like the art style, I'm out. And I was like, okay, well that's just closed-minded. But
yeah,
I gave it the full thing, and I was like, okay, this is good.
Yeah, I think I think that's how I felt about it too. I started watching it when it was airing, and I was like neutral on the first episode. I'm like, this is pretty decent, but okay. And then I got to episode 2 when everyone else was watching it, and everyone flipped out over the running sequence. I don't know if you remember that, but there were like, the girls were, I think they meet the third girl and they're like running through the city. Do you remember that one?
I think I vaguely, was this in the first few episodes, or this was like later?
Yeah.
Okay.
And everyone was like flipping out over it. They were like, oh my God, this is so well done. This is going to be like anime of the year. And I knew in that moment when it was airing that I'm like, okay, I'm going to take like 5 steps back and catch up with this at a later time, because I'm not feeling it as much as everyone else. And I know them constantly yelling, this is anime of the year, is going to make me resent this series more. So I kind of like pumped the brakes. I didn't watch it for a good year, and I just watched it on my own and binged it. And I think the first couple episodes, I'm just not really attached to the characters, and I could tell that they wanted us to be, because they had an insert song every episode, and that's how they have like the emotional insert song of like, look how friends, like we have our feelings, and it's like, I'm not there yet. But then once they introduced the cast, they were on their journey to Antarctica. I started getting invested in them more, and I really liked it by the end.
Yeah, but that's where I got invested, when we got the full cast and their dynamic. And, there's certain episodes where I didn't care for, but then like the end, I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. But
like, so the way everyone was reacting to like episode 2, and I was like, I'm not on the same page. Then you get to the episode with the emails, and I was like on the same page as everyone. I was crying. I was loving that. So I think it just took me a bit. And that's the kind of the unfortunate, pros and cons to being a one core series, is like, if you don't get immediately attached, you don't have as much time to get attached as you would with something that's a longer running series.
Yeah.
And, that's when you look at it, it's like, okay, 5 out of, is it 13 episodes?
Yeah, like 13, 12 or 13.
Okay, so like out of 5 episodes, if I'm just kind of neutral on it, like this isn't going to be something I value as much as something where I'm invested the whole time.
And I feel like, I definitely like what it did for some people, that I heard that it made them like want to like explore their city, like kind of just go out, like, explore, do something, grand, like, I don't know, with their youth, something like that. And I was like,
they
cool.
wanted to. I think it had cool messages that I'm glad people had really good takeaways from. Like, I think it's a fun series. If people have that as their anime of the year, I'm like, totally fitting. I can see the hype. I respect it. I'm not on that same page, but like, all the respect.
Yeah, and I have a few more. Okay, I think I'm gonna just skip. Well, okay, as long as you're still having fun.
Oh no, I'm having lots of fun.
I might skip this one, because now this one popped in my head, and I don't even know your rating for it, but I think I want to talk about it, because it was around the same time period, and it was also overhyped to hell. Anime of the year, as soon as it came out, people were like, "Oh, anime of the year," and it's like, mind you, it's January at the beginning of that year. Yeah. Devilman Crybaby.
That's an interesting one. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I'm glad that you were watching airing at 2018, so you could have the full scope. But 2018 airings was the year where everyone was like, this is the best year of anime in years. And I'm like, the highest score I've given in airing this year is an 8. Like, I'm not feeling this as much. But Devilman Crybaby was interesting, because that was another one I gave a 7. But I think it's such an ambitious project, and it was so interesting and unique compared to everything that was coming out, like A Place Further Than the Universe, that I could totally buy into the hype, even if I wasn't on that level. Because I think there are a few episodes of Devilman Crybaby where it's just kind of like gratuitous violence and sexuality, where I couldn't really see the point. But then by the end, I'm like, okay, now I get the point. Now I get what you're going for.
It's like, oh, what? Now this is where End of Ava got its influence. I get it now. This makes sense.
It's like, oh, look, it's Ava and Berserk. I see it. That's
it felt like I got a piece of anime history there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt very mixed about Devilman Crybaby, because like, by the end, like, and I was doing a video on it, so I actually watched a bunch of all these anime I caught up to that were like, kind of touted as like the best that year and all of that. Wait, I'm thinking of the wrong year, but whatever. I did a video where I talked about all the big anime that Violet Evergarden, Devilman Crybaby, Megalobox.
Yep, that was all 2018, I think.
Yeah, and so I even talked about like Planet With, that was that year too.
Yeah.
And then Devilman Crybaby, like I felt like it was gratuitous. It felt like it was very uncomfortable. Like first time I'm watching an anime, and it was hard to watch some scenes. Like they were like, it felt, for someone that loves End Evangelion, it felt like more nightmare fuel. Than End Evangelion. And again, like even when I was like editing the video, I didn't want to go back through some scenes.
Oh
I was just like, okay. Yeah. But like after like thinking about it thematically and kind of analyzing it and trying to get what it was going for, yes, I agree with some of the points you said. Some episodes just felt like, okay, this is just violence for violence sake and just to kind of be edgy or whatever. Yeah. But like I guess I gained more of an appreciation of it afterward, that I think it would sit for me. I wouldn't give it a 6 because I feel like it did something like ambitious, like it did. Yeah. So I'm somewhere within that 7 to 8 range. Maybe I'll give it a light 8. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, like 7 or 8. I don't know. Maybe 7. But because I respect it for what it did, and I don't want to lowball it because of its message. But do I say it's an enjoyable watch? Would I say, oh, I would totally rewatch this? You know, maybe that would be the community making me feel that way. But if I were honest with myself, you know, I respect it. So 7.
That's another
7.
One. You're not like inviting the homies over for a night of pizza to watch Devilman Crybaby. Like you're not like chilling with the squad to watch Devilman Crybaby. Like that's just not how it would work. Like you could watch Your Name with random people. You're not watching Devilman Crybaby with people. Like, and that's something that's, you know, I respect Devilman Crybaby and I do enjoy it, but you know, it is that kind of like, it's not as accessible.
Like my friend and I have joked for years, because we used to podcast together a long time ago, and we joked like a long time ago about like we should one day do depressing anime day. Like we like watch a whole day, just watch Grave of the Fireflies, all the Shinkai movies, all within the same day, and then react like afterward, like just talk about it, just be super like, see how it affects us emotionally. Like we'll destroy ourselves. Like that's the point. We never did that to this day, but I feel like that's the only place where Devilman Crybaby would fit. It's like, you want to go hardcore, that's it. Hardcore anime day. Devilman Crybaby, Shinkai, Grave of the Fireflies, let's go. Let's get hammered.
You could do the apocalyptic trifecta. You do like Devilman Crybaby, then you do like Berserk, then you do Ava, and you're like, they're all like so depressing and apocalyptic.
I mean,
and sad.
What's the other one? There's a depressing anime movie. Ava is an anime movie, but like, wasn't there like Tokyo, like Metropolis no,
that sounds familiar. I was thinking of Grave of the Fireflies.
Oh, that one, which actually I still haven't watched that one.
I haven't either.
Okay, well, we have to get to it. Maybe we should have a reaction podcast where we talk about Grave of the Fireflies.
Crying while watching Grave of the Fireflies in hopefully better HD than my current camera.
That's definitely not a pizza night worthy movie. That's more like, you know, soggy ramen, you know. What else? So I kind of threw Devilman Crybaby here out of nowhere because it popped into my head. I don't know. I have Your Lie in April here, but after we've talked about all these other emotional kind of shows that didn't hit with us, I think it's going to be in the same ballpark.
Yeah. So, do you like it? Are you on the?
No, it's like, it's one of those, I said it in a previous stream, like Anohana and Your Lie in April were one of those that super resonated with people. And for me, it was just like there was potential. There's stuff I liked, you know, I don't consider it awful, but I don't consider it like, it didn't hit like to that level with me.
Sorry, exact same too. Because I watched them back to back. Because I was like, time to get through. I think I did something. I think it was last year. I was like, let's do Feels February, where I watch all the shows that people are like, oh yeah, it made me feel so many things. And I watched Your Lie in April and Anohana, and I liked Your Lie in April a bit more, but I think that is definitely because of the music aspect.
No, I agree. I definitely put. I don't have a score for them. I haven't scored them, but I put Your Lie in April above Anohana.
Yeah. Your Lie in April, I definitely think they do the music aspects really well, and I enjoy it. And I think the performances they have are really gorgeous. So
like
I
the
give
musical sequence and number towards the end was
that last episode sequence of Your Lie in April with like him playing piano and he like sees her or like imagines her. That's definitely up there for probably one of the like, I'm not gonna say best scenes, but like definitely one of the most iconic scenes that I think is like really well done.
Yeah. No, I think that was really good. But besides that, I was like, it was okay.
Yeah, and I know some people really hate the characters and like how they address some of the scenes, and I don't feel that strongly about that. So it's one of those weirdly polarizing series where some people like really hate it, and I'm not on that wavelength either.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I didn't think it was polarizing. I just thought, most people like it, and I'm just kind of like one of the ones that doesn't.
Yeah, I think most people definitely like it, but you do see like I'd say the loud minority of people who feel like the way it handles abuse is really offensive. They don't like how like his whole thing is his mom abused him, and then Kaori is like jokingly hitting him to be like snap out of it.
Okay, so I watched it weekly while it was airing, so maybe I didn't analyze it. I didn't get too into it, but okay, that makes.
I probably wouldn't have picked that out because it didn't. I don't know. It didn't bother me. It's not something I would have noticed, but I recognize that other people have that issue. But that's not something I feel. I don't feel that either. So I don't like hate that. I don't hate them. Like, just don't feel as strongly.
Yeah. That's one of those. I think that if you don't feel strongly in your scale, it would be a 6, correct?
Yep. Yeah, I think 6. I gave it a 6. And I don't know if you feel this too, since we're like close in age, and this is a story focused on middle schoolers. But that was one of those shows that I had. My initial thought at some point is, I am way too old for this series. I wish I was like 5, 6 years younger, and I probably would have enjoyed it more.
I mean, that's not fair considering like most of the anime we watch center around 16 or 17-year-olds. Like I was thinking about this the other day as I'm watching anime. I'm like hitting this age, like where I'm becoming so far removed, and we're still watching anime about 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds.
But that's the thing is because we watch so many anime about like high schoolers, if they can make me resonate with a 16-year-old when I'm normally like so far removed from that age group, that's like more impressive. But I think when a show doesn't do that, there is a level of like, it's not able to rise above the demographic and capture my attention.
Yeah.
I mean, like one of my second favorite series, Hunter x Hunter, it's focused on like, 12-year-olds going on an adventure. And at no point am I like, I can't relate to these 12-year-olds,
But it's not even about that. At no point in Hunter x Hunter am I like, oh, it's these 12-year-olds and 13. Like I was never focused on, like they are like, okay, at certain points you are focused on their age, but most of it's like they're just doing their thing. I don't know.
Yeah. It's maybe a better example is I still love K-On! And that's about like high schoolers sitting around drinking tea and eating cakes. And I never have that issue. But, something with Your Lie in April, I'm like, yeah, these are middle schoolers. I feel it. I definitely feel the middle school.
Yeah. Like, so so you're saying it didn't work as well in terms
It didn't work as well for me because I think it's just the story itself. But another maybe separate aspect is like, I feel too old for the conflicts that they're talking about.
Yeah. It's like, all right, guys, get over it. Once you grow older, this won't be an issue. You're making a world out of this. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. And meanwhile, like high school version of yourself was like, this is the end of the world. You don't understand me. You don't understand anything. I was like, you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that was Your Lie in April. And then the other one I have. Okay, we talked about that. There was one that popped up in my head and I don't remember anymore. So I'm just going to go for this next one. The Devil is a Part-Timer.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
I think you give it a low score, and I was surprised. I was like, "Oh, I love this show." I think you give it like a 5.
Did I do that? I could have seen that. I'm double checking because I don't. So okay, you can blame my friend for this. That was part of. I don't know if you do this too, like anime contracts, where you're like, you watch this show, I watch this show.
So one of my most viewed videos is an anime contract.
Okay.
A friend of mine. Had him watch Evangelion for the first time, and I watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, all of it.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, you told me about this.
Yeah. So, and I did that recently again with something else, but yeah. So I've done it a few times.
Yeah. So I did this with my friend. I've had 3 Hunter x Hunter contracts where I've made people watch Hunter x Hunter, and then they have me watch like 20 series. So that's like partially responsible for like half of my list. And then
yeah, because you like to make it fair, right? Be like, okay, it's 150 episodes, so I'll watch this many series. Yeah. That's what I did with Ava. I was like, okay, you got to watch the whole series, all the movies, the rebuild, and then that adds up to like 2-3 seasons of JoJo's. So
yeah, and that's where I'm like, you know, okay, I'll watch like all these series, and I think every time I end up watching longer things than they do, but because it's like 140 episodes, I feel bad, so I'm like, okay, but
yeah.
So that was one of those contract series, and my friend had me watch it in dub. He was like, you need to watch the dub. Like, you need to watch it. And I did, and I don't actually think the dub is bad, but for whatever reason, I just didn't find it that funny. Like, and my thing was, I'm sitting there, I think I gave it a 7 at first, and I double checked, and I think I gave it a 6. So my thing is, like, with comedies, if I don't find them funny, I'm like, how much credit can I give them? Because they're comedies. Like, I'm supposed to laugh. I'm supposed to have fun. I'm supposed to be like entertained by it. Yeah. And if I feel kind of whatever about it, then I'm like, okay, I can't give it that much credit. But I mean, I like the concept a lot, and the characters were pretty decent. I like the one neat guy. Who was that guy?
I don't remember, but I just remember loving the characters. Like, the characters were super fun. And I think the show at times felt like repetitive or wasn't like getting anywhere, but like that's not what it was about. Like, it was just very like fun to see the characters, so it was character driven. I don't know, I just watched it while it was airing, and it was fun.
I wish I enjoyed it more, because I do think it's like a cool concept, and it's like a passively fun show. Like, I don't have beef with Devil as a part-timer, you know, I'm not like down on it. I just wish I had more fun with it, and it could just be the dub. If I could probably maybe like watch it again in sub, might have a completely different experience and enjoy it more.
Yeah, like you're really good at this discourse thing. I can't even like, I heard your explanation. I'm not mad at you. And I'm like, okay, that's reasonable.
I feel so bad, because it's like, that's just one of those shows where I'm like, yeah, I saw it, it's fine. But I will scapegoat my friend and throw him under the bus and say, you made me watch it in dub, so now it gets a low score.
That's probably the only, one first point is comedy is very subjective, even in anime. So it's like, that's fair, because, it's fair. It's not fair to expect someone to find the same thing funny that you do. It's a lot harder with comedy. So if you already enjoy a certain brand of comedy, it's kind of like, don't even bother trying with, getting them into something else that's just not their type of comedy.
And I don't know about you, but I'm like very, I don't want to say sensitive. I'm very like, I react a lot to like voice acting quality. Like, voice acting can make or break a series for me. I'm very
even in Japanese.
Yeah. So like, a lot of my favorite series have some of my favorite voice acting, especially in comedic stuff. I think the comedic timing can be a huge like difference maker between loving a comedy and not enjoying it as much. So when I have like a sub versus dub issue, like, I could have a completely different opinion on a series just based on the sub versus dub.
Usually with comedies, or just in general?
Just in general, but I think comedies is probably where it suffers the most. Just depending.
I don't watch too many things dubbed at all, like anything. So I've only seen subbed, and since it's Japanese, like you can't really, I think, pick up on the nuances sometimes of the delivery. So I don't really. There's only been very rarely, like, few times where I've noticed, like, oh, that the delivery of that line, even though it's in Japanese, like, I could kind of tell, like, it just didn't sound realistic, or it sounded weird. But most of the time, I don't really pick up at that stuff, because most of the sub stuff, I think, always, like, Japanese voice actors are just on point. They have some crazy range. But the only example I guess I could give is something that I liked dubbed, that someone told me to watch, was Prison School. I watched Prison School in the English dub, and it was phenomenal. It was hilarious. That was a comedy anime that I really enjoyed dubbed.
I'll have to check that out. I haven't finished Prison School, but I thought it was funny. I have to see. I'll see sub and dub for it. But
I guess all I have to say about Prison School, like, it's one of those ones where you're like, what would I rate this? Like, this is one of those like sort of like a trashy anime, but then that's the point, and it executes it so well. So this is quality wise, this is an 8. Yeah,
I mean, I could see anyone giving that a high score if it's like, this is like comedy.
Like, comedy, it's a pretty etchy anime, but it's one of those that does it really well.
Yeah.
Like, the only thing I have to say about Prison School, and again, I'm not big on watching gag or comedy anime, because there's no driving force to kind of keep getting through each episode. Yeah. But Prison School, I just went through the whole thing, and I even read the whole manga. The manga is like one of the most hilarious manga. The only thing that sucks about it is the ending. And you'll hear
it
other
got
people say
axed,
that.
right?
Yeah, I think it did get axed because the ending just felt like something they just threw together just to have an ending. It just I don't know. It wasn't satisfying. But the manga was just a good time. It captured like the comedy of the anime without the voice acting, but the anime is still better because you got all the voices. So So okay, now you've explained Devil's a part-timer. I don't know if you have any you want to bring up because I know you haven't really like looked up through my list, and that's not even complete. So if you do have something you want to bring up, feel free to bring it up. If not, we can get into Kingdom Hearts.
We could do that. I had a quick question because you said you don't have your top 10 yet.
Yeah.
But you have your top one. So I know about your top one. Mm-hmm. Do you have any series that you know will most likely make your top 10?
Mob Psycho 100, somewhere up there.
I'm sorry, that was such a deep cut.
It's okay. I'm glad, it's all right.
I really do mean it, and I'm not saying it just because we're on stream, but that is one that I've been like needing to update my opinion on. So I think that's like a top tier series. Like that's like one that I think is like such a good top 10 pick.
Yeah, and Mob Psycho, and the thing I hate about Mal that I have to get used to is that you can't pick a series as a whole. Like you got to pick season 2, or if you're picking a Monogatari, you have to pick the specific one to be your top. It's like you can't be like Monogatari franchise. It's like, oh no, you can't do that. So I guess it would be Mob Psycho 100 season 2, in the top 10, because I wouldn't repeat both seasons. Although, can I count Ava as one? Can I just take End of Evangelion?
I think that I consider that like the whole thing. I think that's the whole.
Okay. Well, for my own personal top 10, Mob Psycho 100, could be somewhere up there. I'm debating because I still need to rewatch it, but I really resonated with Shirobako, so I think it might be.
That's such a good one. That's such a good series, and I don't see it discussed that much. I feel like that's one that we need like a resurgence of like attention to.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's good. Although it did have like a movie, and I heard it. I was excited to see it. Heard it wasn't as good. Like it was. Really? Yeah. So
it's not out yet, but I was excited.
Like it was like a sequel, but I saw ratings like if the show was a 10, the movie was like a 6. So I was like, oh.
That's like a huge jump. I do know. That's sad.
Yeah. I don't know if Monster would be up there. I really respect Monster. Monster is definitely a 10/10. So.
Love Monster. Love Monster a lot. That's a great one.
And besides,
you know that, but people might not know that.
Yeah, Monster's in our top 10. I love Hunter x Hunter, but because it hasn't concluded, I never really consider it as like it's something I can give a rating and like just be like, this is in my top 10 or these are my like I'm still waiting for it to conclude, I guess. But
yeah, that makes sense. I don't think that will happen for a long time, unfortunately, but
I think we should take bets. Kingdom Hearts 4 or Hunter x Hunter concluding, and then we'll see.
Kingdom Hearts 4 will happen.
I don't know. That's kind of it off the top of my head. I'd have to think about it some more, but those are sort of a few of the ones that are up there.
Yeah, that's good to hear because I'm excited in the Onimaru top 10 arc. I'm excited to see how this plays out.
We'll get there. It's going to be a while because I want to at least complete all my anime and because I have to remember everything I've watched and maybe what stuff I have to give a second chance to before I guess I could make a top 10. I don't know.
I'm trying to find your Mal again. Is it Onimaru? Because I double.
It's Lord Onimaru. You know how like there's king in your name? Like you gotta the Lord.
Okay, I have it and we're friends, but we're not friends.
We're not friends. That's not cool.
That's why I was like looking through, I was like trying to find it, and the person just added there's another Onimaru, and I was like, wait a minute. I should have known what called your profile cringe. So I should have known.
Yeah. That's how you know. If it's what certified. Oh, I just got your friend request. I got an email.
Okay.
All right. I will add you later. Even though I technically already found yours.
Yeah.
And then another one actually just came into my head. And I guess I should not have it in my top 10 because I'm being a hypocrite if I do. Hoseki no Kuni.
That's okay. I think we both agree that any rule we have to other series not qualifying because they're not finished do not apply to Hoseki no Kuni because we like it so much that it's the exception. Like it's the rule breaker of all of our rules.
Yeah, but it's like, it's not finished, and I just gave Hunter x Hunter like, oh, it's not finished, so I can't put it up there. But I don't know. I really enjoyed Hoseki no Kuni, so
Yeah.
could be up there. I really have to think, because again, there's a ton of anime that I just day by day I remember. Like, oh yeah, like I would think I was watching that. Like I heard someone mention Outbreak Company, and I was like, oh, I watched that, and it was like it's just these anime that I've just forgotten, and it's like, oh, okay, I watched that. I watched that.
That is the number one reason I have a MyAnimeList, is because I forget everything I've seen. Like, I think I would forget everything if I didn't like write it down.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it's hard to keep track of it, like, because there's so many anime coming out every season, like just putting like what you're currently watching, what you already watched, what you're putting on hold. So it's definitely a commitment, but I think the value is knowing, hey, what I watch, what I like, keeping track. Has it ever been like difficult for you to kind of keep up with it, or are you kind of like a naturally organized person where it's like second nature to kind of just keep track of things?
So I'm not naturally organized with anything except my hobbies. So I'm only organized with stupid things like keeping track of my mal, not keeping track of like my calendar at work or like my room being neat, but my mal is kind of in order. That's it.
Are you kind of like a procrastinator?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So is your mal like your way of
it's part of the
you're procrastinating, but you're by like putting something you enjoy in order. So okay, that makes sense.
Yes. So I'm always just like, oh, I could I could do this work, or I could go go through my mal again and see if everything's in order and if I'm up to date. So it helps me procrastinate on other things.
Yeah, I definitely have to get on that. And to just answer Drax's question here, I think what he mentioned here, well, I don't think being finished matters all too much. Berserk will never be finished. That's true. And that's what my favorite anime ever is. Well, I don't know. I just feel like I'm so invested in seeing where Hunter x Hunter goes. Like, it's part of the journey. Like, I just want to see. Like, I want to just see the end. I want to see where all of this goes. I love Nen. I love the whole thing he's created here, that I just want to see more of it. So that's kind of...
I do have to agree with Drax, because I am in the boat of, I think Hunter x Hunter is complete enough that I'm not going to hold not having a full ending against it, because it feels like it concluded the main story enough within the anime we got.
Yeah, that 2011 anime is pretty much like complete.
So that feels like a full package, but I do understand that there are a lot of series where they are kind of like left off and we don't know what's going to happen, and you can tell that like they need that last part to conclude the story. Like, you can't really there's not as much wiggle room.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And also, if you do treat it, because now that I'm realizing these things, when you're ranking anime, you're also not only rating the story, you're rating the adaptation. Because for all we know, Hunter x Hunter, the manga could finish one day, and then the producers decide, hey, let's give it another reboot. So then you have to look at 2011 as its own thing, and then that has its own like rating. So
same with like the 99. They have like the 99 one, which I haven't seen yet. Okay. No, I have to see it. I'm like such a fake fan for my favorite things. Like, I haven't read the Steins Gate visual novel. I haven't seen the 99 Hunter x Hunter. So like, I need to stop slacking.
Guys, I'm sorry for inviting a fake fan onto the podcast. No,
my genuine fandom is represented by my computer cutting out or my camera cutting out all the time.
I think there's a lot of skill, involved in getting away with being a fake fan and just navigating through discourse, like having people agree with you when your computer's just cutting out and your cam every second, and people are like, we're cool with this. We're cool with the 480p that she's willing to give us. We're fine with it. It's like, no, she's in 4K. You need to experience it. So... Okay, I lost what I was going to say before. This Justin Zero says FMA versus Brotherhood. I'm not getting into that, but Brotherhood. So yeah, I'll keep you posted on the top 10 anime thing where I turn up with that. I might do some streams with that. But let's talk about Kingdom Hearts. I know it's not anime, but
it might as well be. It might as well be.
It might as well be. Like, that's why I love Kingdom Hearts. It's like anime.
Cutscenes are definitely like anime-ish.
Yeah. So, you know what? I want to bring this up, and I'm actually going to have a bit of a heads up, a Kingdom Hearts episode in like 2 weeks from now. I'm going to have like a stream where I'm just talking about all of Kingdom Hearts.
I'm so excited.
I'm going to touch on it a little bit here.
One of the things that's been annoying me recently, I don't know if this is new. I've been seeing this like on Twitter, online, social media. Like people are just slandering Kingdom Hearts, saying it's like so convoluted. Can you believe this scene like exists? Like, you know,
bad voice acting.
Like, it's understandable. I get it, but I'm like, where is this coming from now? Like, it's been around for so long. Like, it's like, you know, is it because, you know, people were upset with 3? Like, you know, was it, you know, where is it just kind of just came out of nowhere? And then your thoughts on it. Like, what do you think as a fan?
So I think I have so many thoughts on this because I'm in probably the same boat that you were. Like, were you in the same boat where you saw like Kingdom Hearts was one of your first games, or at least one of the games you played as a kid, or no?
So interesting story. I'm slightly different from you in that regard. I feel like now I'm the fake fan. Okay, I'm the fake fan here.
No, I will out fake fan you. Don't worry.
No, I'm the fake fan here because I did not. So I have a friend on here. I think Mr. Justin here. He played it when he was a kid, so that's one of his first games. But I did not play it till I was in high school. So it was the summer before my senior year, and I picked up the first game. I think someone lent it to me, or I don't know. I felt like, I never played this game. Let me play it. I beat the first game. I took 2 weeks longer beating it because I wanted to get the ultimate weapon because I wanted to be like overly prepared for the boss battle. And then I beat it in like 5 minutes, and I'm like, okay, this is not what I didn't need this. But
this wasn't even harder than Riku that time.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what the hell? So I beat it, but then after that, you know what it was? I found out that this, like, before I got to play 2, I had to play Chain of Memories, and I was like, okay, I think I borrowed it from a friend. I got it like a Game Boy Advanced SP, or I got a DS, and I started playing it, and I wasn't into it because I'm like, oh no, like this card system. I just want to play the game. I just want to go to 2. And so strangely enough, my DS while I was playing it malfunctioned. Brand new DS. and it cut out my memory. I would have to start a new game, and I was just like, fuck this. I'm not into this that much. Whatever. I dropped off, never touched it again. That's it.
Understandable.
In college, my sophomore year, in the summer again, I was working like a work study job with a good friend of mine. I don't know if he's watching the stream. If you are, thank you. He's really good at hyping things up, and he was telling me everything about Kingdom Hearts 2. Yeah. And he just made it sound so amazing. And I'm like, dude, you have to play it. It's like, it's so good. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then like, will you lend it to me? He's like, yeah, sure. And then, so fake fan here. I just gave myself the leeway to just jump to 2 without finishing Chain of Memories.
I did that too.
Screw it. So, what did I do? Actually, what did I play that? I don't know if I played, did I play? Because I played 358 and a half days. But I'm trying to remember if I played that before 2. I don't know, whatever. I did play that game, but I played 2, and 2 changed everything. 2 made me like into like it made me into such a fan, and then I've been playing Kingdom Hearts since then. Like really like looking forward to the games since then.
That's awesome. I love that story.
Yeah, 2 was
my story.
What was that?
It's better than my story. I love that. That's awesome.
2 was like so, and I was raving about it with my friend afterward. Like 2 was not only like good, like awesome in terms of story, in terms of payoff, like the gameplay was fun.
Yeah.
And I've never been like a true gamer, like so much into video games. I've always liked films and stories more, and just getting I play games for story, you know, but playing Kingdom Hearts 2 was such a blast. Like the battle system, the different forms, the Sephiroth fight, everything was great about it. So
I love to.
That's my story. So
no, that's awesome, because I just played it as a kid, but I've also been in the same situations where, like, you know, I'm not like a huge Kingdom Hearts fan to the point where I'm like, if you don't play all the games, you're a fake fan, mostly because I haven't played all the games. And it's not because I don't want to, it's just because I didn't have the consoles when I was a kid. I had a PS2. I'm like, okay, if it's on PS2, I'll play it, but I'm not going to go get like a DS just for this Kingdom Hearts. Like, I wasn't going to go get every system that a Kingdom Hearts game came out on. Yeah. So I'm just like, sorry, I'm not going to do it. But I did. 1, I tried Chain of Memories. I hated the card shit. Didn't do that. So then I was like, Kingdom Hearts 2 it is. Like, I'm not putting up with this. I definitely tried it, and then I was like, yeah, I'm 10 years old and this sucks, so I'm not doing this. So so I was like off of that. But it was so cool because I played Kingdom Hearts 1 with my best friend, and her older sister was like 7 years older than us, and she was like a huge weeb. Like she would go to Otakon and do cosplay. She was all into like anime and games. So I remember I didn't even get to finish Kingdom Hearts 1 when I was a kid because my PS2 malfunctioned. So I was in the same boat of like the shit malfunction and now I can't finish. But I saw the ending from her, and then I got around to playing Kingdom Hearts 2, and it was like the coolest shit ever. So I'm glad that you played it in college and can reaffirm it's not just my nostalgia and love of Disney incorporated media, that the game is actually good. So
I'm actually not even like, I mean, I've been surrounded like by Disney and watched Disney and whatever since I was a kid, but I've never been a huge Disney fan. Like and I don't even want to say like I dislike Disney. Like it's just like I've seen the level of like people that are really into Disney. I've never been on that level. Like
there's like and I've seen like like the Disney people, like hardcore deep Disney people. I'm not there, but I've seen it, and I'm like,
I mean, I witnessed it when I took a Walt Disney, like a class on Disney in college. I took an elective, and I saw true Disney fans. I'm like, I'm not at that level. I'm just curious here. So but I loved it, the whole like crossover aspect. It was just really fun, and traveling to different worlds and all that stuff. And then,
I love that. Yeah.
Two was
sorry, we got distracted from our question. Sorry.
Oh yeah. So Well, let me finish up. So like 2 was super fun, and just gameplay wise. And then after that, I played I have played some of the spinoffs, not all of them. One of my like that's up there is Birth by Sleep that I got for the PSP. That was super fun. Story was
a wild prequel, like very hard hitting.
Yeah, but it definitely like added a lot more. Like this is when I think maybe people were having the problems with. This is when the story, not that the game itself was like bad or that the story was bad. Like it made me even more interested. But I could see like how the elements now started to get like out of control. Like there's too much in terms of gameplay mechanics that exist, and also kind of how far the story is starting to branch out in terms of like all these factors involved in it.
Yeah, 100%. Because I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I'm of the opinion that they could have ended the story at Kingdom Hearts 2 and no one would have that many issues. Like Kingdom Hearts 2 almost had like a natural conclusion where like everything was kind of okay. And then they saw how successful the series was, and they extended it more with like more spin-offs, more backstories, more everything, while still kind of building up towards Kingdom Hearts 3. And, I respect it because, make more games. It's more fun for people. There's no reason that they should stop it too from a financial perspective. But I think that was the clear-cut point in which they decided to not turn it into a cash cow, but kind of do a lot more.
I mean, like, I totally agree. It could have ended at 2. 2 was so good. Like, sure, they gave you that hint at the end of, this is going to continue. There's more. And that was exciting. But if they didn't do that, it could have wrapped up. That could have been it. It didn't need to be the Xehanort saga. It could have just been like, that's it. But that is what made it interesting.
Yeah.
But like, you could argue that Birth by Sleep just felt like, you know what? How do we expand this? How do we add more stuff?
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. They do that with games all the time. And most people are not like concerned with the long con, the overall arcing story that spans like 20 years or whatever. Like, I don't expect everyone to be like super invested in that.
Yeah.
But it is tough because, they add so much to it. And then people are like, this story doesn't make sense. And it's like, well, that's what happens when you have a giant franchise that spans like, I don't think it's actually 20 years, but I think it is 20 years next year.
Yeah, it's a long time. But, they definitely had to add those elements with those spin-offs to make it keep going, to have stuff for a 3 and a 4. But okay, back to the central question. Did you play anything after 2?
So I didn't play anything after 2 for a long time because I didn't have a PSP and I didn't have other non-PS2 consoles at the time. Because when I played Kingdom Hearts 2, I think I don't want to say 10. I was around 10. So I'm not like, I wasn't an adult at the time where I could go out and like torrent the games or like, buy the equipment. And I was like, okay, I'm just waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3 to come out. Then I would stay waiting for a long time. But I didn't play the games afterwards. I've gone back and I've played like some of Birth by Sleep and like, I don't think I did 360. It's not 365. It's 352.
Yeah, 358 by 2.5.
Because I got the like final mix now, so whatever, I could play them. But I didn't play them for a while, and I was just kind of chilling with 1 and 2. But so I'm like the biggest fake fan. So I'm sorry.
I endorse wicking things, to just kind of get the gist. So I'm fake fan here. I'm competing here. So
and I think it makes sense because it's not like watching something. You could watch something on anything. It's like, sorry, I'm not dropping hundreds of dollars for every new iteration of the Kingdom Hearts game. I'm sorry. I can take the fan card, but I'm not going to do it. So I think I just have such a connection to it from my childhood perspective, but I have replayed the games as an adult and I still have a lot of fun with them.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have complained about them for whatever reasons. Most of the time, I really don't care because I'm like, okay, but I'm still having fun. I still think that the emotional character moments of the game are good, independent of how convoluted it can be.
Yeah.
I think something like I think it was the prequel with Roxas in the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2. Well, it's not a prequel, but like
the prologue. The
prologue. Yeah, thank you. The prologue with Roxas in the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2 is like a very emotionally resonant scene that I think can appeal to a lot of people independent of the story. You know, I think that's like a really powerful moment. So like Roxas's character arc over the whole series is something I think has been like a really good point of emotional connection. And to me, I think the real appeal of Kingdom Hearts is it kind of brings in the bittersweet aspect of Japanese storytelling that you get in like the Final Fantasy games or like anime. And it mixes it in with the heartfelt emotional aspects we have from Disney stories that are, most of the time more sentimental. And you kind of get the best of both worlds. And that's the general vibe I get from every Kingdom Hearts game, which I can attest to because I'm replaying Kingdom Hearts 1 with my fiance who's playing it for the first time. So we really get to go back and see how that first game is. And it's like, you get both aspects without feeling too overwhelmed by the bittersweet and not too overwhelmed with the innocent Disney vibes.
Yeah. Like there's a lot. One was just fun. Like there was some things about it that were like tedious, but it was a fun game. It was that had that allure of, kind of exploring the world and kind of seeing what was next and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But did you play 3, by the way?
I did play 3. I got it. I think it was like, did I do this? I forget. I was like, took the day off from work because I knew that I told myself when 3 came out, I'm like, okay, I'm taking the next day off from work and I'm just binging it, like getting it at midnight, binging it, playing through.
I mean, I said I would not get a PS4 until I was like, I'm going to get a PS4 when Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out and I'm going to get the limited edition PS3. But then someone talked me out of it because they're like, dude, they're not going to release the limited edition PS3 in America. So whatever. I ended up getting Kingdom Hearts 3 and then borrowing my fiance's PS4 and then just playing it on that. But we had to take turns because she wanted to play it, then I wanted to play it.
Oh, that's awesome. I called it my Kingdom Hearts machine.
Yeah, like literally, that's the only purpose I wanted a PlayStation for, But like, because sometimes there are certain a series that I think are just worth it, biting the bullet and getting the console. And hopefully there's something else you can play on it. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, I've definitely played many games on my PS4, so it hasn't become just a Kingdom Hearts machine. But it was so fitting to call it that because the original Kingdom Hearts 1 commercial is why I got a PS2 back in 2002. I remember the exact commercial that came out. It's like 7-year-old me still obsessed with Disney movies, watching The Little Mermaid every chance I can get. And then you turn on TV and you're like, this is a video game where I go to Disney World. That's it. Buying that. Mom, Santa, help me out. So that's what got me into PS2 games in the first place. So it was only fitting that Kingdom Hearts 3 was like why I got a PS4.
Yeah. Thankfully the only console system whatever that I got that unfortunately all I played was like Kingdom Hearts on it was the PSP. Like I literally bought a limited edition PSP with the Birth by Sleep, played Birth by Sleep, and I beat it, but then I'm like, this is just sitting here. So I managed to buy Metal Gear Solid on it and beat Metal Gear Solid, so I can at least justify I played 2 games on this thing, and that's it.
I'm guessing you played 3 and you guys did you enjoy it?
So I played 3. So I want to talk about 3. And I think that's where all of this stuff is coming from.
It all comes down to 3.
I mean, I played Dream Drop Distance before 3 a few years back, actually a while back on the 3DS. But thankfully, I played other games on my 3DS, so it's all good. And I already had a 3DS. But Kingdom Hearts 3, and I'll talk about this more in depth on that Kingdom Hearts episode if I do have that one. But Kingdom Hearts 3, I had issues with, but, and I think this hits the nail on the head with what you said like right before this about what is appealing about Kingdom Hearts story and the emotional beats that it hits. I think that tracks with what I'm about to say is what I was satisfied with Kingdom Hearts 3 about was the story. Like, it was convoluted, whatever, but I felt like I got closure for like a lot of the threads that had been set up in the previous games and with all the characters and even the spin-offs. Like I felt like on that note, on an emotional level, I was satisfied with it. I was happy with it. I got what I wanted. And I was like, characters got reunited. I was like, okay, this is great. The issues I had with it were gameplay. And I'm not a stickler for gameplay, but I felt like I had so much fun playing Birth by Sleep. This game was like doing too much. Like there were too many mechanics that were just unnecessary. And some of the worlds felt a little like lackluster. And,
I'm not sure. Did you feel this too? Because so I'm replaying 1 now that I can attest to. And I think my favorite part of 1, not my favorite, one of my favorite aspects is how they incorporate the original Disney story in with the new Kingdom Hearts story. So you have something like Halloween Town, which is of course from Nightmare Before Christmas. And in the Nightmare Before Christmas story, it was all about them trying to, reinvent Halloween and do something spooky that year. And that was like the main premise. This in Kingdom Hearts, the Halloween Town world, it's about them incorporating the Heartless to make a new spooky, Halloween's thing. And that's such a great melding of both stories for a new thing that feels like the original. Kingdom Hearts 3, they were just dead ass retelling the same story. And there felt like no net between the two.
I didn't remember, but that was my issue with it. That was just like, there's nothing new here. It's literally, we're retelling the movie story, which I already watched. I watched all the movies that were the worlds, and it wasn't fun. Like the only, which was weird, the only worlds that were the best were the first 2. Which was just like, I think Tangled World and...
Well, I think it was a Toy Story, right? Toy Story, and technically Toy Story and the Colosseum were first, but I think Tangled...
Sorry. Well, one of the early ones, I think Tangled was one of the... Like, it was the same story, so story-wise, it was like, okay, it's the same thing. But the world was fun. But I don't know. I was like, why... Everything after that just felt like, it didn't feel as impressive or fun, so... And
it was really difficult because... I think it's difficult with 3 too, because they kind of left behind a lot of key mechanics from the main game. So like Kingdom Hearts in 1 and 2, and I know there's so many like side games that they change it up, but that like Kingdom Hearts 3 will be compared to 1 and 2 because it's in the title, it's the main story.
Well, I felt like it tried to mix too many of the mechanics from previous games. It's like, oh, we already did all these things, so we kind of have to throw all this stuff back in. But now we have roller coasters too, and like amusement park rides that you can do as attacks.
I remember that.
And I'm guy, I can just kill this thing with just hacking and slashing. I don't need all these triangle options.
Yeah, but they didn't have. I don't know how much of an issue this was for you, but it kind of bothered me. They had none of the Final Fantasy characters, which I thought was kind of an issue. I think that's a problem because they were a key part of the story for so much of the series that they're like, okay, Final Fantasy guy's out. And then they didn't have the Colosseum as a place to go to for like those normal tournaments. And I feel like those are like, at least the tournament aspect, that's something that adds so much more gameplay to the series that kind of like breaks up just like going from world to world and doing that.
I didn't have a problem with that, but now that you say it, like it literally just felt like going from world to world. And I was like, okay, what's next? All right, I beat the next world. Okay, what's next?
Take a picture of this Mickey icon.
Like there was no like those things were annoying at the time, but it did add to the diversity, the variety of the game of doing stuff. It just felt like once they cleared all the worlds, it was like okay, now let's get to the end, and then that was kind of it. So yeah. I'm still excited for Kingdom Hearts 4.
Did you feel like disappointed by the ending that they were going to do that, or were you excited?
Well, I knew Kingdom Hearts 4 was coming.
You did know, you knew ahead of time.
Yeah, because I read a Tetsuya Nomura interview back in college when like Birth by Sleep came out or whatever, and I remember being disappointed. Like I was like, all that's left is 3, and that's what everyone's waiting for.
Yeah.
That and the new Final Fantasy 15 when at the time where everyone was waiting for that. And the interview, he said, "Oh, Kingdom Hearts 3 is the end of the Xehanort saga, but it won't be the last game. There will be 4." And then 4 will be the actual conclusion of the whole story. I'm like, wait, what? No, but 3 is taking forever. When is 4 going to come out? So I came into 3 at least expecting, well, this is the end of the Xehanort saga. Because friends kept asking me like, hey, is this no, this is the end of the Xehanort saga. I'm like, oh, yeah. So, everyone's Xehanort. Everyone. Yeah. You, me, past self. Yeah. We're all Xehanort.
Once they start doing like time travel stuff, I'm like, we're too deep. Like, I think we cannot, Kingdom Hearts got to know, like, you guys are getting a bit too deep into this.
I'm going to mention this a little bit. I think we're going to wrap up the Kingdom Hearts conversation here. Yeah. We have strayed so far from the path of the original title of this video. Do anime scores even matter? So Kingdom Hearts is so convoluted. Yeah. That's, I think, what some people were annoyed with about the new Final Fantasy VII remake. Don't know if you've played it.
I did play, I didn't finish the Final Fantasy Remake Part 1, but I'm like 80% done.
Yeah, I mean, Part 1, yeah. I finished it recently, a few months back. No spoilers, but how do I not spoil this? Well, okay.
Oh, you can spoil. I know what happens.
Well, towards the end of it, pretty much, it gets which a lot of fans of the original game, which I did not play, but there are fans.
Oh, I know the issue you're talking about. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It gets very Kingdom Hearts Tetsuya Nomura.
Yeah.
Like, it gets very, because I have to keep in mind, he made Final Fantasy VII before all of the Kingdom Hearts games.
Yeah.
So kind of the Destiny kind of aspects of you can kind of, everything is in flux. You can change everything. Yeah. That's introduced in Final Fantasy VII Remake, which, is kind of not the good parts of Kingdom Hearts. So the very, very, the potential for very convoluted stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, but I'll let you kind of, come to your own conclusion about it when you finish it.
I've heard the complaints, and it seems valid to have those complaints, especially compared to the original Final Fantasy VII. I don't know why that was a tongue twister. Yeah. And I think it sounds interesting, but I'm sure it'll still be good.
I mean,
but
don't get me wrong. I still loved it, and I'm still misplaying it. So I didn't mind it too much, but I should. I didn't. Because I don't know. It gives the potential to do something new, as opposed to the same game being told the same way, which is what some fans wanted, and that's valid too.
Yeah, it depends on what people want. And I think it'll mostly just come down to part 2. That's too soon to tell. Probably will come down to part 2.
I'm more amazed that finding out later that remake, I thought it was cool that they expanded it, that literally, because I didn't play the original, this whole section of the story was like 40 hours. In the original game, it's 8 hours. It's only it's not even the first disc. So they expanded the story to be a 40-hour game, and then I found out that the original 4-disc game takes 48 hours to beat.
That's wild.
So they literally took part 1 and it just made like as long as the original game. So I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see how they expand out the rest. So,
yeah, that'll be wild.
And so I guess we got to bring it back to scores. I'm not even going to ask you what you'd score Kingdom Hearts. So
you can if you want. I think I got my scores, but I'm not confident.
You know what? Let's do it. What would you score Kingdom Hearts?
Like all of it or the individual games?
How do you want to do it? What are you more comfortable with?
I did the individual games when I think about it. Okay. So when I think about it, Kingdom Hearts 1, I would give an 8. Kingdom Hearts 2, I would give like a very high 9. And then Kingdom Hearts 3 is like high 7, low 8.
High 7, low. Wait, I thought we weren't doing low. High 7s or low. You gotta commit. But I think it's because you're not confident in it. So
I'm not confident. Yeah,
I agree with all of that. Actually, I mean, like my Kingdom Hearts 2 is pushing more towards 10, but I don't know. It's not really like it wasn't transcendent, but it was a good ass time.
Yeah, and I haven't played Kingdom Hearts 2 since I was like 10 or 11. So
Yeah.
I'm like, so I'm going to replay it soon. And that could be the difference between a 9 or a 10.
Yeah. And
But I could see giving it a 10. I think it's almost worth that. So if anyone gives it a 10, I'm like, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I agree with that. You said low 7 for 3, right?
No, like high 7.
I think I'd give like Birth by Sleep like a 10. I don't know. It was really,
Oh,
really
that's
good.
cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, Birth by Sleep is like such an interesting, like, seems like such an interesting concept too. Because I haven't gotten around to play it, but I've seen lots of cutscenes, and I wikied it. I'm sorry, but so I wikied it, and I saw the cutscenes, and I've seen Kingdom Hearts explained.
The gameplay for Birth by Sleep is so fun, and it's different. It's similar to 2, but it's different, and I'd say it's on par, like as in the gameplay experience as 2. So I think it's worth playing it, just even like to not get the story, just to play it. Like, yeah. So that's my recommendation. It was just super fun. And if you want to borrow it, my PSP doesn't work anymore, but I do have if you can get a PSP, I can mail it to you.
Thanks. I'm lucky that I got the what's it?
The HD, the PlayStation.
I got the yeah, it's like the collection 1.5 plus 2.5, all this stuff. It's got the like one disc, and it's got like all the games on it. Like
so
one. Yeah, I'm good. I appreciate the offer.
Yeah, no worries. Because I just have it sitting there, and my PSP broke, and I'm like, what do I do with this? I do want to keep this. Yeah. Let's see. I think we went over top 10. We went over your scoring metrics. So I think we're gonna just conclude the podcast with the original question: do anime scores even matter?
If they matter to you, then they matter. But you have to determine what it like. I said, wow, glad I don't have a straightforward answer for this. Great. So
yeah, it's all good.
Do they matter? Yes, but as much as you want them to matter. That's like my end goal.
It's basically as much stock as you put into it.
Exactly. As much as you think they matter, but the opinions behind them matter more.
Yeah, and in your opinion, should, like, okay, if you had the option, the choice to like abolish anime scores, the existence of scores in general, would you be for it or against it?
I'd be against it, just because it's like I don't like the idea of abolishing a way for someone to express their opinion. And at the end of the day, it's a way for someone to express an opinion, and sometimes they're more confident in scores. So I'd say let them do it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that about wraps it up. So thank you for being a guest, for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. And
I had so much fun. This was honestly one of the most fun, conversations I've had in a while. Of course, we have the most fun talks all the time. So I'm like so appreciative that you'd have me. I'm sorry my computer camera is like.
We'll fix it. If you're willing to come on in the future, you'll get it straightened out. You get the lighting and all that stuff. Maybe the green screen.
I would love a green screen.
I would have the Weathering with You background to compete with my Your Name background.
That would be great. I would love that. That would be funny.
And just so you guys know, and those that are watching, the viewers, this is actually our second conversation. So, you made it sound like we talk a lot. This is officially our second conversation, sort of. I think
it's like 2.5 because we did we were on What's Podcast.
That's right. So
2.5 remix.
2.5 remix. Yeah, that's perfect. HD. Actually, no, not HD, because you're kind of like glitching out. You're 480p. This
is like 2.5 remix on a PlayStation 1 quality.
Yeah, exactly. But you guys got to keep supporting us so we can, up the quality. So anyways, thank you guys for joining. I think we're going to end it here. And I'm going to be streaming next week, same time, hopefully with Shabes, about sort of the same topics, but with a different spin. And you're welcome to join if you want to be in on that too.
Oh, thank you. I might lurk on the chat because I want Shabes' time to shine. But I would love.
We want to hear his thoughts specifically.
Need to hear his takes.
Yeah. So, all right. I will catch you guys later. Oh, and also before we go, if you want to hear more of ShaKing's hot takes, if you like what she said, follow her on Twitter at ShaKing807. It's down in the banner below. She just recently again hit 4,000. You want to kick up that number to 5,000, help her on the way. Follow my measly little Twitter account, which I barely tweet on, 300 followers, on @LordOnimaru. Just do that.
Maybe we can get you to score your entire MAL in order from 1 to probably 1,000.
If that gets engagement, yeah, sure, I'll do it. God, do I have to give in an opinion for each? Do I have to do a little blurb?
I started doing that, and it's really fun. If you get your top 10, I'll make one of those cool like anime mosaics for you, and you can do those.
Also, follow her just for her anime mosaics. They're pretty dope. Like,
Thank you.
I didn't even know those were a thing until I saw her like tweeting those and like, oh wow, I didn't know there were such good scenes in anime. I kind of just watch it and don't pause.
I had no idea people like cared about them at all, but they're fun to do. So, I mean, I'll make one for your top 10 if you want.
Sounds
I would
awesome.
be honored.
Or you could like give me a tutorial on how to make my own. It's like you pause here and then you screen grab and then All right. Anyways, see you later, guys. And I hope you guys can join us again.
Thank you.